Surf's up, welcome to the Mauisnake show, and yes, the Launder show did copy the exact color scheme of the Mauisnake show, but we've got two guests here today. We're going to be going over the RMRs. First up, we got Pimp, who was covering the EU RMR. Actually, I think he covered a few of the RMRs for Danish television, and we talk about not only that, but his weight loss journey. And then we got another guy who has had a journey with weight loss and changing his body composition. It's Semphis, coach of Nouns. Obviously, this guy has also played at a major before. Both of these guys have played at majors before. And so they've got a lot of insight, varied perspectives, and thanks for joining once again. Enjoy. All right, we're recording this at 8:40 p.m. London time. It is 9:40 in Denmark. I'm here with Pimp, fellow analyst, ex-player, played for Liquid, obviously. I'll never forget that, as a matter of fact, Pimp. Never going to forget that.
No one will.
You'll make sure of it. You'll make sure no one forgets it. But we have a lot of CS to unpack. I mean, the RMRs just happened. You were covering it on Danish television. I was covering it at the Americas. I was keeping an eye on the European stuff. But let's just get into like what is interesting here. Let's get into what people want to sink their teeth into. It's that FaZe barely made it. They had to go through the last chance qualifier. They lost games to Navi, BNE, and Maus. And then they took down Cloud9 to make it. But like, it was close. So what do you think right now of the form of FaZe that we saw at the RMRs?
It was very worrisome, to be completely honest. I saw a lot of people when they lost to Navi, they were like, yeah, no worries. It's a game against Navi. It's the best of three. But even I felt after watching that game that, this could be bad. You know, I think the way FaZe conducted themselves in that game against a Navi as well, who's been out of shape for a long time, I was thinking to myself, okay, this is a team that could be in trouble. Let's see. Then they lose to BNE, and I'm thinking to myself, that's no bueno, right? You're not supposed to lose a best of three in such an important game against a team like BNE. And then you get that sense, you know, that whenever FaZe have backs against the wall, it's a 2-2 game, they'll win. They'll beat Maus, no worries. And then they lose to Maus, right? And I'm like, that's kind of what I felt from the beginning, that FaZe right now is not in a good shape. It almost felt like they came into this RMR at 60 or 70% thinking that they'll be fine, they'll qualify, they'll get the job done, and then it can ramp up their form, you know, leading into the major. But I think they got a bit of a scare, and they should be very, very, very happy that we, for the first time ever, had this European last chance qualifier, because otherwise the last CS major would have been without FaZe.
Yeah, but what does it say though about them that I think they did come in at like 60% and yet they still got it done? Does that mean other people though have to worry about FaZe because like that clearly was not what we're used to seeing from them, and they still got it done? So there's obviously room to ramp up. We've all seen them get better before, or do you think that this is going to carry over? I mean, Rio's just started. They won their first map pretty convincingly. But do you think this is even a team that's going to be a threat at the major? Does everybody still have to worry about FaZe is my question.
100%.
Okay.
Like only a fool wouldn't worry about FaZe. I still think they're one of the main favorites, if not the main favorite, honestly, going into the major. And that's crazy, right? A team that almost didn't make it is probably gonna turn up to Paris and be the, at least in my books, a top two contender. You know, it's a team that you expect going into the final. So yes, it does say a lot about FaZe that they at 60 or 70% still is highly competitive, still on a good day could win the last major ever. But I will say that if they face up only at 80 or 90% in Paris, if they're not ramping up the shape, if they're not ironing out all these mistakes, and if they don't regain that individual strength that usually carried them over the line, then teams like Heroic, Navi, G2 for that matter, I'm pretty sure they're going to turn up for that major in a very good shape. So
yeah,
FaZe have to use this as a bit of a wake-up call, and then I think, you know, from knowing Kerrigan as well, like we kind of have the same mentality in the sense that you cannot peak throughout the entire year. You cannot play at 100% throughout the entire year. You will burn out, and you will cause some of the players to not love the game anymore. So this whole thing where they're probably going to ramp up, play more and more and more and more leading up to the Paris major is going to make me say that yes, they're going to be part of the playoff, and I'd be disappointed, honestly, if they weren't in a semifinal or a final for that matter.
Let's draw it up. Let's draw it up right now. Who would be? Give me 4 teams you definitely want to see in the playoffs.
I think FaZe obviously is a given.
Sure.
I think Heroic, without a doubt, is a given. I think Heroic right now is at a point where if they don't make a result here at this major, this final CSGO major, no one will remember Heroic as a good Counter-Strike team or a good global offensive team. They haven't been good for that long, so I think they're playing sort of for their legacy. Navi as well could be in there as well, and then G2. I think
Yeah.
G2
Okay.
again, without a doubt, is and has been the best team if you look past this last 6 months. Obviously, they had a bit of a dip in form at Pro League, but apart from that, they've been solid. So I think those 4 teams are the heavy favorites and also the boring answers, to be honest.
I would consider that my like S tier going into Paris. But who is like the other 4 that you think now could sneak into Paris there? Because already off the board, Cloud9. Cloud9 didn't make it. We'll talk about Cloud9, but let's finish this part first. Who are 4 more teams that you maybe don't 100% believe they're gonna make it, but even just like would want to see, like that you think could be interesting if they do make it?
I think first and foremost you got to address Vitality. I think they've always been in that like second tier sort of, top 5, top 6, whatever you wanna label them. I said it on Danish television as well. If the Paris major is not gonna be enough to motivate them enough to do well, to be the team that we suspected they would be when they signed Spinks in the first place, nothing will ever be enough, right? If that's not enough for them to fully grind, fully turn their head down and just get it done, then nothing ever will. So I'd be very, very disappointed if Vitality is not a team that is making the playoff and even the semifinal for that matter as well. I also interviewed the mental coach during Katowice, the Trolls Rubble guy, if you know him.
Yeah, I think I follow him. Yeah, I've definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a hotshot in Denmark, at least when it comes to the mental side of the game. And he kept talking about the Paris Major, like at Katowice. Like, yeah, Katowice is important, but we're focused at the Paris Major.
Okay.
Our goal is to use this tournament to get ready for the Paris Major. And I was like, dude, you're at Katowice. Like, you're at one of the pinnacle events in the entire world, and all you do is talk about Paris. And fair enough, if that's the goal, if that's the plan Vitality has put down, that they don't really care that much about Katowice, that it's okay to maybe only be at 70 or 80% of Katowice, then you better show up 100% for Paris. Otherwise, all we've been speaking about for the past 6 months and all you're speaking about at Katowice is just wasted time and waste of my time, basically. So I suspect Vitality will do better than we've seen in quite some time, but I'm not sure if I believe it myself. That's my issue. But I sure as hell hope they turn out in a good shape.
Okay. I'll go next. I'll go next with one that I think. I mean, to me, I would like to see Liquid there. And I know that's going to maybe makes a couple people that are listening groan a little bit.
You're from NA, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's obviously a little bit of bias there. But like in all honesty, I've never really been like the biggest like Liquid proponent. Like I've been fans of actually some other teams because I like their style or some of the unique players on their teams more. But with Liquid, it's just like their finishes for the last 8 months, barring what happened at Pro League where they lost to Pain, they've been super consistent. That's my main thing. Like, you know, at Katowice, they beat FaZe on LAN. They made it to the playoffs. They were top 4, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they beat Vitality actually in the quarterfinals. And then at the World Finals, they were in the Grand Finals. You know, they've been doing pretty damn well at a lot of events. And so for me, I don't think that they're necessarily going to be doing damage, but they're a team that if they're in the quarterfinals, you know it's going to be a good matchup versus one of those other 4 S-tier teams that we've already outlined. Like, if you can't beat Liquid, then, like, I didn't want to see you going farther in this tournament anyways. So I would like to see Liquid in that top 8 just to give somebody a really big run for their money.
I don't disagree with that. The only problem I have is that what is the motivation for Team Liquid? What is going to motivate them extra to do well in Paris? I feel a lot of the players within Liquid have achieved a lot. A lot of the players within Liquid are, you know, you look at Elise, you look at Nitro, that they've been here for forever, right? What is going to motivate them extra compared to the rest of the teams? I also do feel Liquid is in a bit of a rocky place right now, where given how life is for Yikinda in Liquid, you know, traveling back from Europe, NA.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, he spent most of his life in Europe, so he practiced with them sometimes from Europe to NA. Like, it's just not a sustainable solution, basically. I also look at OC as a player in contention for potentially being kicked when we go into Counter-Strike 2. If he's not delivering at the major in Paris, I think they will look elsewhere, maybe, for a new AWP player for Counter-Strike 2. So I'm not sure where Liquid is at right now. I do agree with you. There's so much quality, so much experience. Yikinda as well in a good shape, Elise in a good shape. Just the 2 of them should be enough to be top 8. So I think you're right that they'll probably make playoff or at least contend to it, but I'm not sure if I believe they'll go much further than that, because I don't see what's going to motivate Liquid more than a team like G2, Heroic, Navi. I feel like I can find more bullet points for those teams than Liquid.
Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Like, it's kind of all I've heard from them is that, a few of them have won Grand Slams. I'm looking at like Nitro, Elysian, NAF, that core, and yet they've never won a major. And so they know that, like, looking at the history of North American Counter-Strike, it is kind of funny that you could still say to this day that, the guy that
won a major.
like, who's won a major and who's won a Grand Slam. The only people now are Twist and Stewie, and it's just like, okay, like, that's where they probably have a little bit of a chip on their shoulders, where I could see them finding a little bit of extra motivation for this event.
Sure.
But truthfully, it's hard for me to see them powering up for this event in a meaningful way to actually win it all. But I think that it's just kind of one of those teams where I firmly believe they're a top 8 team, and I would want the 8 best teams to be in the playoffs there. Now it gets a little tricky for me. I don't know who I'd like to see as like, say, the 7th or 8th teams. I'm looking at the team list, and I think a couple teams could be occupying those spots, like, say, a Furia, an Ents, a Maus, but I'm not really, like, I think that's where it's I think it's pretty wide open at 7 and 8.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd happily put it on the line right here and say the famous last words of me going to Brazil again. I deeply inside my body hopes that Furia will crash out of the major so we can get to see a new iteration of that lineup.
Okay.
With all the respect to all the players, I've seen enough. It's been the same team for a long time. They haven't innovated themselves whatsoever. Same play style. I even feel what we saw in Brazil at the Rio major, it was obviously great. They created a fantastic atmosphere, but the way they played Counter-Strike, if you go in and watch their demos, if you go rewatch those games, it was straight up out of spawn calls, 9 out of 10 rounds. It was rushes. It was the only thing that worked for them because of the environment they were playing in with the crowd and the noise and all that kind of stuff. It was basically a bit of a one-off in that regard.
Yeah.
I feel like we've seen the real level of Furia ever since. And, when you have Queserado, you have Yuri, I even think Safe is a good player. Like, you're not getting enough out of them. I've criticized Art a little bit. I've criticized the Furia project as a whole. I don't know who's responsible, if it's only Art or if it's a team decision or whatever, but I haven't seen them improve a lot lately, let's put it that way, and I haven't seen them change their style whatsoever. It's still a one-trick pony, still hyper-aggressive team, still Art running around giving up opening kills for free every single freaking game. And I'm getting to a point where, like, if it took you 5 years to figure out that you still don't have to change, then you're too ignorant for me to even buy into. The dude also blocked me on Twitter. I think he's the only player who's ever blocked me on Twitter. So I'm like,
okay.
I just hope that Furia lose so we can see a new version of Furia. And I've said it before as well. I don't care if they kick Art or if they find a new player or whatever it may be, but just change the way you play Counter-Strike. Change the style of the team. Art, you can stay for my liking as long as you're willing to change, and I haven't seen that. So I hope Furia is going to crash out of the major so I can see a new Queserado and a new Yuri in a different playing Furia. But you're right, they have a lot of quality and are definitely up there. I think Ents as well. Ents is interesting to me. I think Nerds is slowly but surely integrating himself to be a good player. Snappy told me on Danish television when I did an interview that he thinks personally that he's a top 10 player in the entire world.
Wow.
Which is big words, very big words. He must see something in practice we don't. Unofficial, he's been good. He's a little bit unstable, crashing out of a couple of games, but overall, I think he's getting better and trending upwards. And I can see that if he can follow the same progress as Spinks did in Ents, I see them have enough firepower. I think Duha is criminally underrated as a Counter-Strike player. I think there's a lot of teams that should be looking at Duha and potentially sign him if you want a stable rifle player who's going to deliver. So I could see Ents, take one of those top 8 spots now that Cloud9 and a couple of the other big dogs, Virtus Pro, is not going to be there.
This is tell me what you think. This is a hot take here. I think if Vitality don't make it to the playoffs of Paris, they should just get Deha, or they should just get Nerds. Yeah. They should get one of those two. Like, I think those would easily be upgrades for, say, like to me, the biggest underperformer for Vitality has been Dupree for the longest time. Like, I mean, you could say it's Apex if you don't like the calling, but I don't think the calling is a huge issue with Vitality, because I liked their calling so much better when Jax was on the team, actually during Pro League groups. Like, they started playing a little bit faster, and I actually think that just suited the whole team a lot better because Jax was just ready to entry. And if you just sent Nerds, in instead of Dupree, like, it's night and day. Nerds is in such better form right now. Yeah, I think Nerds is definitely one of the guys right now that is just seriously, he's changed the whole narrative around Ents. Like, they weren't doing anything with Valde, and now suddenly they made it to this major almost comfortably, and I now kind of almost believe they can beat anybody. I mean, they beat G2 at Pro League. They're the team that took them down.
Yeah.
So I think that ENCE would kind of be a team for me that I'd like to see make it to the top 8. But if I'm gonna throw like one flyer out that I would like to really see make it or do well is 9. Like, I like how 9 play a lot. It's just the style of CS that they play. Like, nobody in terms of individuals is popping out to me off the page, but I just like how active they are. They're like, to me, they're like the little brother of Heroic. Like, they're just like always trying to like throw a play out. They have an idea. And so to me, they're like, that brand of CS gets me excited because it's not a call out of spawn. It's a mid-round idea, and they'll always act on it. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on 9? What you saw like at the showdown or at the RMR?
I think they were very good. We both saw them at the showdown, right? And I think we were both impressed. I had them winning against Big as well. I think they lost in a very close fashion in that best of 3 game. Could have won it easily. Went on to the RMR and became a legend team, and I think they deserved it fully. They played, as you said, very good Counter-Strike. And I buy the argument, or I buy the sentiment that you call them the little brothers of Heroic in a way. I feel like they share some of the same tendencies. They're very good at reacting to unforeseen stuff in any certain situation, any certain round. Feels like it's a team that is practicing a lot. I feel like you can always see in a team how well synergized they are, that they are putting in hours. They're actually practicing an awful lot. The CT sides are very structured as well. The rotations are spot on. It feels like they're never being caught off guard. Sometimes when they lack, it's because of individual firepower. Some of the individuals are not, getting the multi-kill that you'd see a Robs get or a Triss get for that matter, but they're always in right positions. So I do think 9, if they can apply just a tiny bit more team play, and if they can raise the level of their individuals just a little bit, I think they're going to be good enough, to contend for the top 8 spot. But where it falls for me is Kyler. Is he good enough to do it at a major stage? Is Goofy good enough to do it at a major stage? Goofy. Like, have we seen Hades? I mean, we saw him in ENCE. Is he good enough to do what he's doing right now for 9? When it matters the absolute most at a major. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know, but I'm very intrigued by them as well, and I wouldn't mind if they make top 8.
They had the heart, like, in terms of what they did at the RMR, most impressive 3-0. G2, Big, and Vitality, and they didn't drop a map. Like, that's great. Like, the other 3-0 teams, just for to give people context, Heroic, but they beat 500 Aurora and Monty. Like, that's not even that impressive. And then when you look at, say, Na'Vi, Into the Breach, Falcons, and yes, they 2-0'd FaZe, but we also were just talking about how FaZe wasn't playing up to the level that we expect from FaZe. And so even Navi's run doesn't seem as impressive. Fanatics 3-0, like Viperio 1-win bait. Like, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started on that. Like, that's just
doesn't count.
Yeah, that barely, it's nothing. That's none of those teams even qualified, But okay, we do need to talk about the team that is missing, obviously, from the major, Cloud9. Like, they didn't make it through the RMR. Like, pretty heartbreaking the way that they just like didn't deliver against FaZe, because like this is a team that I think everybody wanted to see, and they didn't have the easiest road. Like, they lost to G2, they lost to an ENCE team that we're now hyping up, they lost to FaZe, but like they also lost to Monty in a BO1. And so what is your, before I go in on Cloud9 as I do, what is your take on what the issue is with Cloud9?
I've been wanting to talk to you about this, actually, because I think we see it different. I know you're not the biggest Nafany fan out there, and it's not that I'm a fan either, but I don't think he's the core issue in Cloud9. I think there's 2 main things that sticks out to me. First and foremost, the signing of Buster was just horrible. Like, with all the respect to Buster, I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think he's been doing poorly individually in Cloud9. There's been games where he obviously haven't been playing well enough, but I don't think he was the right fit. I think right now, the CIS region, the Russian player base for that matter, they have so freaking many talents out there. There's so many players you could have picked up. New blood, Chiron is a great example. It didn't work out in VP, right? But there's like 10 Chirons in the CS region right now. There's so many players you could have picked up to give Cloud9 a fresh look, give it some new blood, give it some motivation, and maybe draw them back in that, grind mode they used to be in. Because if you remember in Corona, they were playing the most Counter-Strike out of everyone. They were the team in the world playing the most maps in Counter-Strike every single month. I missed that Cloud9, and I think that's what made them good. So I think the pickup of Buster was the first massive mistake. I said it in an HLTV podcast as well. The dude was horrible the last 7 months he played in VP. Absolutely horrible. Played his worst Counter-Strike ever, then takes a 7-month break, comes back, and we expect him to be good. I don't know what world that even applies, right? So I'm not surprised that he's struggling in Cloud9. I also do think it's about time that we look at Exile and Shiro and we kind of dive into where their stats and where their impact is actually coming from. Because the more and more I watched him, I would agree Shiro is fantastic, right? You can't put a finger on his individual level, but sometimes I feel like he's not taking enough risk. He's not trying to find enough impact given how good he is. He's sort of like a mini version of Blame F for me in Astralis, where we also do criticize Blame F for sometimes we sit back with a feeling that, dude, you can do more, and you know you can do more. We see you hunting all the aggressive kills in the ecos, and you feel comfortable in those. Why don't you do that just in a couple of rifle rounds? And I feel the same with Shiro. Sometimes I feel like he's playing a bit more for the stats, and he's playing a bit more to what he knows works for him instead of taking the necessary risk to make the difference. You look at Brokey in FaZe Clan, he's the complete opposite player, right? He's always taking risk, always doing something where you think, oh, dude, does he even have a brain, right? But he does it as per his intuition. And of course, he knows what he's doing. And I lack that within Cloud9 because Exile is the same. Exile is playing ABC Counter-Strike. So when you have your 2 star players playing ABC, you're bound to lose game you're supposed to win if your team is not playing well enough. So I think as much as I want to criticize Nafany as well, Buster for that matter as well, I do think Shiro and Exile right now is getting more credit that they deserve for the individual level. It's easy to praise them for doing well, easy to say that, yes, they deserve to be at the major, but I also do think they're part of the solution as to why they are not at the major. They need to take more risk and they need to go out of their comfort zone just a little bit more. Maybe it's Nafany not allowing them to, maybe it's them not willing to do it, but I'm getting the feeling that they're both too passive in their respective roles.
That is a good point, that they're not necessarily the entry players. Like basically Nafany's starting off most rounds for Cloud9. Like
every round. Yeah.
He's going for the crazy plays a lot of the time. He's basically their art. He doesn't look as crazy when he does all these moves, but in sense and the structure of the team, he is going for a lot of them. I have a hard time. I'll say this with Shiro. I've seen where he was in terms of really passive, like during the online era, and I've seen him open up his playbook a little bit. I do think it could be a little bit more. I definitely think that he could be more aggressive, and I also think you bring up a great point, which is that his stats are inflated. Like he's getting a lot of exit kills. Like that's why like for oppers in general, because they're saving so often, all of their stats are slightly inflated because they're getting like 3 more kills per game, if not more, and they're getting like 3 less deaths. Because how are you going to start a retake every time? By sending in a rifler. You know, you're going with the rifler first, and then the rifler's going to die, and then the op is kind of like holding the angle to see if somebody swings, and if the rifler just dies, the op's just running away. And also sometimes that rifler is just that, like, Shiro is just going to hold that spot, and then he's going to get like the 1 kill, 2 kills on a post plant, which he's not even really going for. And yeah, sure, he keeps that op in the next round, but it's like, yeah, I've seen it before where he keeps that op in the next round and he doesn't really impose it on his opponents. Whereas like, dude, even Zywoo, who maybe the one criticism you could have had for him before was that he was a little bit passive, even he will just go for plays now. Like Simple obviously does, Brokey obviously does. You know, you'll see worse oppers try to do more than what Shiro is trying to do sometimes with the op to this day. And it is hard to criticize Shiro, so I'm not putting the blame on him. And that's why I still stick with my whole Nafany angle. I still stick with it being Nafany. I still stick with it being Groove. I still think like the system and structure of the team is where I think this, like, they really fall off. And it's easy to throw like the magnifying glass on the FaZe loss because it was such an awful like they were up 14-5 and they lost, and they got like 1 more T-side round in that whole half, and it was like, you guys even won the pistol. You won the T-side pistol, and you couldn't put more than 1 more round really on the board. Like, that's where it was really sad to watch them. And that's why I do have to say, like, their biggest shortcoming is still their T-sides. It's still the structure. Axile, on the other hand, I just think the structure doesn't serve him at all. Like, I just think, like, it'd be really nice if someone could throw a good flash for Axile a little bit more often, as opposed to him just trying to like jiggle into every angle, which he's fucking great at. He's so sick at just trying to entry into bomb sites, jiggle, like clear every angle out, like headshot, instant headshot if they're there. But like throw this guy a flash a little bit more. And that's why I've been really on Cloud9 for lack of flash assists at most events, lack of setup. That CT side, they can be really sick because these people are just super skilled. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, though, that even though there's criticisms with Cloud9, I would say that like, if you want my honest opinion, it's just a shame they're not at the major. Like, you would want to see them really be competing with the best teams in the world. Like, they'd be a team that, when we're talking about this top 8 of who can slip in there, we would have just said, like, probably the 5th team would have been Cloud9. Like, it would have been even above Liquid. So, yeah, super lame. But okay, what do you think about like the RMRs though? Do you think this is like do you think is there anywhere you want to go with Cloud9, or do you want to, are you okay with moving on to this topic? Because like,
no, I kind of agree with what you're saying. You know,
okay.
I just want to bring a couple of stats to the line as well.
Okay.
I remember presenting them on Danish TV as well, where we're like, this is what I mean when I say Shiro is not doing enough. Out of the 16 teams at the RMR Group B, 16 times 5, how much is that? That's 100 players-ish, right? He's the 6th lowest. He has the 6th lowest attempt rate in opening kills out of all the players. Out of all the players, he's the crazy AWP player. That is straight up crazy. It's not even fun at that point. No. Crimbo is the one doing less opening kills than him, and Crimbo is one of the most passive riflers you can find in the game. It's unheard of. Guess who's the second worst or second last guy to do attempts? Buster doesn't do any attempts whatsoever to open up any rounds whatsoever. Axile can be from time to time, but that's my issue with Cloud9. It's only Nafany. And I use the same analogy when I'm looking at Astralis, another team that didn't make it, and I guess we're going to discuss at some point as well, because that's a fucking disaster.
Yeah, let's get into that after. Yeah.
Let's get into that after, right? Glaive is the only one even trying. I get the feeling when I'm playing or watching Cloud9 and Astralis play that Glaive is the only one trying for Astralis, and Nafany is the only one trying for Cloud9. If you put in any other in-game leader in Cloud9, do you think they'd be better? Because I think if you put any Danish in-game leader instead of Glaive, I don't think Astralis would be better. I don't think Glaive has anything to work with whatsoever in Astralis. When to his right, you got Blame F, who's just hiding in a corner, and to his left, you got Sipnix, who's just hiding in a corner. And then you rely on Boss, who's the youngest dude ever coming into the lineup, who's also trying to open up stuff. I think Nafany is limited in Cloud9 because they're so passive. They have the second worst 5v4 conversion rate as well on the CT side during the RMRs as well. So that's no one taking initiative. Wow. It's pretty bad. It's hella bad. No one really takes initiative.
Yeah.
No one does anything to fight them way back into the rounds, and that's my issue with Cloud9. So yes, I'm gonna miss them as well, because I think Shiro and Exile are way too good to not be at a major. I would love to see them play, and it's not like I'm saying they're bad players, but I think they need to look at themselves as well and figure out, okay, how do we help the team more than just putting up a 1.3 rating? Because that obviously isn't enough. They've been doing that for 2 years, but that's not enough. They have one trophy, I am Dallas, team stand-in. You know, it's not even
it was
something to be
stand-in tournament. The one legit win was FaZe, who had a championship hangover. So that's why we're not even like really giving them the biggest credit for it. Yeah, I actually think that this. Yeah, actually, I want to get into this with you. Actually, I think this is why stats though are so deceiving in this space, because I think that this is like, for example, the biggest scapegoat was like Interz when he was cut from Cloud9. Like, do you think, like, okay, going all the way back to that, do you think Interz, like, there's ways they could have gotten someone to make Cloud9 more interesting? You said Chiron. I think there were a few people in the Russian or Eastern European space.
10 players.
Yeah, there's a ton of players that could have been more interesting. I'm trying to think of other, like Mirror. I think Mirror is still available also. Like, dude, why is that guy not competing in Tier 1? That guy was insane for Spirit for so long. He was like their best player.
All their Aurora players as well. Norvi, Kenzie, like, they're insane individuals. So there's plenty of players.
So many good ones, and yet they went for a move like, and they're not even really using Buster where he was best on VP, like a Vanguard way back when he was entering, when he was second in, first in, like that's what he was sick at. And now they're making him like basically play all the support bitch spots. And that's just not even been his skill set ever. So, okay. What was I trying to frame this as? Oh, okay. The stats portion of this though. Do you think as a community though, we're like putting too much emphasis on like player stats, and like how do you think the discussion could change to make this like more balanced?
I think part of the problem is the rating 2.0, right? It's obviously lackluster in some sense. Exit kills is not being counted as less of a kill than a normal entry kill. That's a good example. I think I had an idea. We talked about it as well during our broadcast that let's say that I kill you in a game and you have value on you for $1,500, right? That's obviously you, small armor, and a deagle. That's the same kill as if I kill you with $7,000 worth of equipment on you with armor, AWP, nades, etc. I think there should be a distinct there as well. I think the values be somewhat of a difference, so the stats becomes a little bit more recognizable. I think as a community, as a whole, yes, we may have an issue with the average Joe and the way he's looking at a team, thinking, okay, he's the issue because he has bad stats. But I think we as analysts and us who really dive into the game, we just need to put more context to it. It's sort of like our job to explain to the people that yes, Boss had a horrible stat line right here, but he was actually the one getting 7 out of the 9 opening kills Astralis had in this game, as an example, right? We need to put more context to the stats as a whole, and I think sometimes we struggle to do that. One thing being we are under a certain time pressure, and sometimes it's just not interesting, right? It's not interesting to talk about the player who's not performing well and dive into his stats and make it slightly better for him because it's not really a story. So it's a hard one to digest. I'd say before we get a rating 3.0, we're probably not gonna be at a scenario where it's not gonna be an issue for the average Joe who just look at the scoreboard thinking that yes, stats are everything that matters in a sense. A lot of players have inflated stats. Blame If, great example. He's a great player, fantastic player. I think he has a great future ahead of him as well, and could be potentially MVP of future tournaments. But he's playing on a bad team, and his stats are probably 0.10 inflated every single time he plays because he's saving 24/7, right? So
it's saving and also rushing at ecos.
He's very good at that. Didn't Wu make that whole graphic where he's the player in the world who kills the most ecos?
He gets the most eco kills. Yeah, he does get the most eco kills. Let's unpack Astralis. They went 1-3 in this. What is your take on them not making it? I think it's, for one, a disaster for the org, but
it's a disaster, man. In Denmark, I think we spoke about that before. In Denmark, Astralis is 95% of the community, even though Heroic have been by far the better team for the past 2 years. I guess Astralis have by the vast majority of all the fans supporting them in Denmark. Them not making the second major in a row, them not making the last CSGO major of all time, it's a massive disaster. There's no two ways around it. Them showing up to the tournament with Kasper Witt behind them as a coach, it's a fucking joke. I even suggested, why don't you bring in Trace? Trace was with the team for a year or something, and sure, maybe it didn't end in the best ways. Maybe you figured out that he wasn't the right fit, but sure as hell he could have helped with more than Kasper Witt did. I think Astralis, in a couple of the games they lost, they had I did a stat line on Twitter as well where they won, I think, 18 out of 24 opening kills, and they still lost the map.
Oh,
so it was just straight up horrible. Kasper Witt didn't take a single timeout at any point, probably because they agreed with the players that he can't vouch for anything, he can't say anything, so he's only there for moral support or only there to, I don't know, yell.
At an RMR, you can't even do that. You can't even be.
Exactly. I was like,
you're just kind of standing there just to fill a spot. That's all it is.
That's what it felt like. So yes, from top to bottom, just very, very disappointing. And I think it's just a culmination of one bad decision after another the past 2 years. Said it before, I'm not necessarily a guy that likes to call out names and say he should be fired, he should be fired, he should be cut off the team. But you look towards Astralis and you can find at least 2 or 3 people who are in positions within the organization or on the team that probably shouldn't be there right now. They probably should have been cut or should have been replaced by someone else before we got to this point. And that's the most disappointing thing, that we had such a great flagship of Danish Counter-Strike who's just been run to the ground by whatever reason that may be.
Yeah. Any of the games stand out to you? Like, they lost to Vitality on Vertigo. I think that's forgiven, but then they lost to Eternal Fire and Nick. So do you have anything from those games? Like the 0-2 from Nip? I mean, Nip are a little
we spoke about NRP coming into the tournament in the exact same state as Astralis. They've been super disappointing in 23. Haven't made a single result. Hetrick haven't, been a good signing for them. He hasn't done anything good for the team. Hampus going out of the group stage with Blast. Config coming in. He's been lackluster as well. He's only now starting to play better. I feel like NRP was even in a worse spot than Astralis did. After all, Astralis came into the major with the Dallas qualifier on the belt. They beat
Yeah.
Cloud9 to qualify. So they were sort of like trending upwards in a way where NRP was trending downwards. So the fact that Astralis lost, I think it was 16-4 or 16-5 and 16-11, it wasn't even a close game.
Yeah,
It wasn't even
16-4,
competitive.
16-11. No, yeah.
There we go. Yeah, you lose to NRP in a non-competitive game. It just speaks volumes to how bad you are. So that's the one that stuck out to me. I thought Astralis were going to beat NRP, to be honest, because it felt like NRP was out of it. They hadn't produced anything, but they feel like they got a good game out of that, and they regained some confidence, qualified for the major, where Astralis, they lost to Eternal Fire 16-7, and they lose to NIP in a game that wasn't even competitive. You know, it was so far from being good that it was just, you know, the whole tournament stood out as a shit show for me, to be honest.
Okay, yeah. And it's like a shame because Device is actually really good.
He's
like,
brilliant. Yeah.
Device could be on basically any team that doesn't have Simple or Zywoo, and he'd probably make the opping situation better. Like, dude, imagine Device on just like Liquid or
oh no, don't go there. Yeah.
Like that would just, I mean, it would also break a lot of people's brains to see him on that team, but it would just
we don't want him to go on a sick leave again because he's joining Liquid. Like, that's not fair enough. You know, we need to keep him somewhere safe.
yeah, no, it would probably ruin him in some ways, but it would also be like, I think the match would be like a match made in heaven. I think that would be a match made in heaven. Just dream roster scenario, him on Liquid, like, because the one thing that Liquid don't seem to have right now is a really stable opper that's gonna just put numbers on the board every single time in a meaningful fashion. Yeah,
I'm even looking. It may sound ridiculous, right? I'm even looking at a team like Ents. No offense to Sun Payers, but just imagine Device in Ents. You know, with the current roster they have, with the foundation, with the calling style, with Snappy. You know, very aggressive out of spawn calls, and you can just let Device do what he does best: hold angles, do the right thing. You know, get into the clutch scenarios. He would be a perfect fit in Ents, and yeah, probably take Ents from being, you know, a contender to top 8 at a major to, you know, guaranteed playoff contender every single time. So yes, Device could be anywhere else in Astralis and still find success, because individually speaking, he's made one of the best comebacks we've ever seen in Counter-Strike. Maybe only Hobbit has done it better, right? It's crazy.
Now that you mention it, I think it's gotta, I mean, those two, good point on Hobbit there. I'm trying to even think who like has made better comebacks. Like,
could argue JKS maybe as well, you know. Fair enough.
JKS had a good comeback with G2. I guess Nitro had one, but like, he hasn't shown a lot as a player, but like their results, I mean, he's IGLing and he's doing it in a different role, but he's okay. But I think that Device's comeback is probably, I think actually, in terms of how impressive the comeback is for how like the duration away, I think JKS, I think those three are really up. I mean, it's hard to pick between those three. I'd have to actually look at like exactly how many months they were all away and everything like that. Yeah. But I mean, but those three.
It's just so funny. We see so many players, you know, take half a year off, come back, and we forget him. We forget about him, right? We forget they were even good at one point. They're just gone.
Yeah.
So it's so impressive when it actually you know, becomes successful for a guy like Device, or for JKS for that matter as well, or Hobbit, who comes back. And Hobbit was like twice the player when he came back. He was even better before he took a break, right? And Device is never going to be the same old Device. I don't think we're ever going to see a Device, you know, posting a year with a 1.3 rating, a 1.25 or whatever. But right now he's good enough to be, as you said, you know, joining any team that's not Na'Vi for obvious reasons, that's not instead of Cywoon Vitality, and probably not Monacy and G2 either. But you would even argue that, you know, you take out Brokey or FaZe, you put in Device, it wouldn't be a worse team, you know, and that's how good he is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do a couple of CS predictions before we move into like the other topic. So IEM Rio happening right now. A couple BO1s. We said the time that I'm going to publish this like tomorrow. So you can make a pretty safe prediction here, and hopefully you're not going to be too upset with that based off of the results still happening on right now. Who do you think are going to be the top 2 teams of this?
I think Heroic and probably Na'Vi or FaZe. I think those 3 are the favorites to go a long way here. I think right now
the same team. I was gonna say Heroic and Na'Vi also.
Okay.
God damn
it does feel like they're good right now. It does feel like the reason why I believe in Heroic is that I know they're also not playing their best Counter-Strike right now, but I feel like Heroic on a day where they're only playing at 80%, their fundamentals and how they play the game is so annoying to any team out there that they'll still win. You know, they're becoming so good right now that even when they're not playing their best, they can still beat you. I think Navi's trending upwards. I think NPL, you know, obviously the way he ended the RMR tournament beating FaZe and just manhandling them.
Yeah.
Hopefully that gave him some confidence to actually believe that he had deserved a spot within Navi, and it does feel like they're trending upwards. And I do have I do have a sweet spot for Blade. I do think that whatever he puts his mind to, like, he will make Navi good at some point. It's just a question of time, and it does feel like Navi is trending upwards. So FaZe, I think they're just there because they have to be there. Like, they qualified for the major. They want to go home, get ready for the major now.
Yeah.
I am Rio is just going to be a chill time for them. I don't really put stuck to them.
It's funny. I do perceive FaZe like that also, where it's just like, it just almost kind of feels like, even though they have some young players, it feels like a bunch of old grumpy men that are like, why do I have to be here? I only care about like 4 things every year. You know, that's
and I'm
just...
sure it's not like that, right? But it's just...
No.
I don't think they have that, you could feel it when they were playing Cloud9, like the way they were animated. Kerrigan was screaming, Brokey was screaming. Every single FaZe player was screaming every single round. All I'm saying is that I don't think we're going to see the same level of energy in the FaZe play. And while we agree they're probably playing it, I think Kerrigan even said it on Danish TV as well, they're playing at 70% right now. If you're playing at 70% and you don't have the energy, then it's probably going to be rough to go all the way. But it's FaZe, so you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Kind of like, it's kind of like once they get to playoffs, if they do, you never know what's going to happen there. But yeah. Okay. Also, prediction, and this is really early, but you just... Okay. Who is winning Paris? Who's winning it? You can change this by the time Paris starts. We'll see what happens at Rio. There'll be some interviews. We'll see some stuff going on. So this isn't set in stone, but if you had to make the pred like a month in advance, which is very early. I
said in the beginning of the year that either Heroic or G2 would win the major. Now, obviously, I didn't know that was going to be the last major of CSGO in all time. So had I known that, I probably would put more stock into Navi and into FaZe. I also think Simple, is going to be super freaking motivated to finish off Counter-Strike CSGO in a good way. And I do feel like some of those teams, if they want to win, they win. So I think it's going to be a race between G2, Heroic, FaZe, and Navi. And if I had to pick one right now, I'd probably go... I'd probably go FaZe. I think FaZe is going to win the Paris major.
Okay, you're going FaZe. I'm going to go Navi. I'm going to go Navi. I kind of agree with what you said earlier, that I think they're just trending upwards. There was the recent interview with Blade about electronics calling and how he thinks that... I don't know if I believe this, but he said that he thinks electronic is a better in-game leader than Boomich. And I think that he kind of described like some things that he thinks electronic's better at, and he also described some things that Boomich thinks he thought Boomich is better at, and then he thinks he's like weighing both, but he's also probably a little bit biased just because like he's working with electronic now. You want to believe in the guy that you're with right now, and Blade's been a really straight shooter for a long time, but if it's like 54% Boomich, 46% electronic, he probably will just still say electronic to give him a little bit more confidence in an interview.
Sure.
So, but I actually think that the NPL angle is one where if he can actually do what he did to FaZe to other teams and not just be a hindrance, I think this team is all of a sudden just really scary. And I also just think that when it comes down to it, in the highest pressure environment, which the Paris playoffs will be like the highest pressure of anybody's lives because they know it's the last CSGO major. There's one guy I count on more than anybody, and it's Simple. That's literally where I have to go with like just making a pick today. It's like, I don't know if I can count on Cadian in a last major grand final of all time type of deal. I don't even know if I can count on Nico in that sort of situation too, because he's failed at majors before. So yeah, that's why I'm just gonna go with the GOAT, which is probably a simplistic way to look at it. But until I see how Rio plays out, until I kind of like really reassess all the players going into the major, then I'll make a more serious prediction. But if I just had to do it a month in advance, that's where I'm going. Okay, let's move off CS. I wanted to talk to you about some real life stuff because you've had such a crazy real life transformation. I think it's not... you're not shy about sharing the fact that like you were very overweight when you were playing. You were losing weight as you were playing, but you had this just basically a huge body transformation where like how much okay, actually, how about you describe it? Like, how much weight did you lose? Like, actually.
When I was at my heaviest, I weighed 130 kilos. And when I was at my lowest, I weighed 70. So I lost 60 kilos. And I think in pounds, that's maybe 120, maybe.
So you were, okay, I'm doing the conversion right now. You were 286 pounds, and you said at lightest 70 what kilos?
70 kilos, yeah.
Okay, so 70. So we went to 154. So that's 100. That's 132 pounds of weight loss. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long was that?
It took a year. It took,
A
yeah,
year.
roughly a year. Yeah,
Just
it
a
took a year.
year.
Just a year. It was a very aggressive weight loss. Let's put it that way. I
How
got started when I was in last year of high school in Denmark, and I was like, it was the whole to put in short terms, it was the whole like, okay, I only have 1 year left, in the high school year where I'm supposed to have the most fun, and I didn't have any fun at all. At least not in school. Whenever we went to the gatherings in the mornings or whenever we did any, socialing stuff, I was always like, I felt like I was a big dude just being in the way of everyone else. I would always occupy 2 chairs instead of 1 chair, and I felt embarrassed by that. So it was one of those things that, okay, dude, this is your last year in high school. I already knew that I would probably go full time playing professional Counter-Strike when I was done with high school. I kind of had planned for that back then. I was, believe it or not, a good player, and I was trending upwards, and I was getting offers from both America but also Europe. So I knew that I was gonna go full time pro when I would quit high school. So I felt like that was the last chance and final chance I had to get something out of that. So I lost that weight throughout that last calendar year of the high school, and went from 130 to I think 69, even at 69 at some point, which was also, I was underweight at that point. So it was a very aggressive weight loss, but it sort of like gave me my life back in a way. I could still play Counter-Strike, still played my best Counter-Strike actually during the weight loss time. I think a lot of that came down to confidence. You get a lot of confidence when you lose weight and you start to feel better about yourself. And I took that confidence outside of my life and I put that into the game as well, playing for Dignitas at the time. And I think the first 6 months of must have been 15 or 14. I think I was the 7th or 6th highest rated LAN player in the entire world. I was just owning it. And then as soon as I started to lose enough weight, then I got too many play dates outside of the computer, and that form started to dip down as well. So I just became a normal pro again.
You were getting too popular.
Yeah, apparently.
Okay, so what? I mean, you were talking about it as being an aggressive weight loss. Is it something that you would recommend, or can people replicate what you did, or was it unhealthy?
It was probably, from a scientific point of view, not the healthiest way of losing weight, but I will say it was a very calculated way of losing weight.
Okay.
So the reasoning behind it was that I didn't give a damn about muscle mass or building muscles whatsoever. I was only doing cardio and eating less calories than I consumed. Simple as that. I could go for a bike ride and I could probably burn 3,000 calories a day and just eat 1,500, which is, way too big of
That's a crazy deficit.
yeah, it's way too much, right? And I could do that 6 days straight, and then maybe I'd have one cheat day where I then ate 4K calories and I only burned 3K. But during the entire week, I've saved up enough, to still have a very aggressive weight loss. I did that because I knew that in Denmark you could get a surgery where they would remove your excess skin on your stomach. And when I started to lose weight, you would like very quickly start to get excess skin that was just hanging, and it was obviously not very very beautiful to look at. So
Yeah.
I made a plan that I wanted to lose as much weight as possible, because I knew if I went down to 70 kilos, I would have as much loose skin as possible. Then when you remove that, there will always be a little bit left. You always have a little bit they can't remove or they can't take away. But then I would then bulk up, and start build on muscle mass. So it was a very calculated and
Oh,
very,
okay.
cynical way of doing it. Not healthy, but I did it for the greater good, sort of, and I haven't regretted it at all. But I wouldn't recommend doing an aggressive weight loss as I did. Make sure you also go to the gym and lift some weights, and make sure you do it in your own tempo. But whatever suits you, suits you.
Yeah, okay. Well, what would you say? I mean, yours was incredibly aggressive, but what would you say to someone that's having trouble getting the motivation to even really start? Because like, some people
Yeah.
like know they should do something. Like they felt the embarrassment that you felt, but then they just kind of have a hard time like getting their first foot like out the door or like into it. So how did you start? Like what was like day one of doing this like yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't think there's ever really a day one in that sense. I think there's many days where you feel like this is the day, this is day one, now I'm doing it. And then you have a fall off, you drop off. You had one good week or 2 good days and then back to the pizza. I think what I did and what worked for me was that I built up enough reasons for me to do it. I think that's the main point. Like if you're thinking to yourself, and I see that a lot these days as well, and I speak to young guys and young girls for that matter as well, who message me. They say, I want to lose weight because I want to look skinny, or I want to lose weight because I want to be pretty. I want to lose weight because I want to get in better shape. Like it's very superficial in a way. Like it's very it's not that rooted in a deep cause, sort of, if you can say it like that. I think you need enough reasons for yourself to do it, and you need strong enough reasons. So one of my reasons was that I've always loved playing football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, where you're from.
Sure.
And I couldn't play, right? I loved to watch football. I would always watch the Premier League in the television, but I couldn't play. And all my mates from school, they were playing in a club. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't even play with them. There's no way I could even run 50 meters without being dead. I want to be able to play football. See, that's one reason, right? I was in high school. I had never talked to a girl at the time. I was a virgin. I was like, am I ever going to get a wife? Am I ever going to have sex? Am I ever going to be with a girl? Probably not if I continue to be 130 kilos, right? 2 reasons right there. Okay, I love biking. I'm always watching the bike races in television. I can't bike, so I got 3 reasons. My parents are probably not proud of me. Right now, my parents are looking at me thinking, that's kind of not what we wanted for our lovely little kid, right? That's 4 reasons. So I built up enough reasons over time to feel like, okay, whenever the pizza was craving, whenever the candy was craving, whenever I didn't want to go for a bike ride, I could think of 1 of 5 or 1 of 6 reasons that was all strong enough to get me going. And I think that's the key advice for me, that if you find enough good reasons to do whatever you want to do or whatever you want to achieve, you can, and you can sort of overwin those obstacles and overwin that, desire inside you saying, no, you don't want to go for the bike ride, or no, you do want to eat that pizza, or whatever that means. And I think that's the main issue for a lot of young people. Like they look in the television, they're like, oh, I want to have a bikini body like that, or I want to have a 6-pack. Those are not good enough. They're not strong enough reasons for you to sacrifice the pizza, the candy, or whatever it may be. So find enough good reasons, and I'm sure you'll figure it out one day.
Yeah, I'll give my side of it too, because I think I have a very different approach to fitness. Because you saw me when I was actually at my heaviest ever in my life. I haven't actually lost much weight, but I've lost like 7% body fat since then. And personally, I just like feeling good. I just like the mental benefits of exercise and eating well, because I can feel it if I eat I like eating a pizza. I love a pizza, a good pizza now and then. I love eating. I like ramen. I like junk food from time to time too. I like sodas, but it's just that if I eat that for 3 days straight or a couple days, whatever, I'll just feel bad. I just know I feel bad, and it's not like the cost benefit of eating a couple meals healthier, and they don't even have to be I don't have to eat salads. It just means instead of eating a couple pastries for breakfast, I'll eat eggs and salmon, which is still and potatoes, which is still really, really great. I love those foods too. But it's just that I know that if I have 3 donuts for breakfast versus eggs, salmon, and potatoes, I will just feel better for the rest of the day. And it's kind of just the action reaction. And I think that's just how I weigh life a lot. And it's just, it's not like I necessarily have these super long-term goals. Even though I lift weights 6 days a week when I'm at home, I don't even have a weightlifting goal. I just like feeling really good, and it's nice to see that I'm getting stronger. It's just nice to feel all this stuff, to run a little bit faster the next time I get on the treadmill or run on the track.
I think that's a very healthy way of addressing it as well. And I think that's where you want to get to when you're done with your weight loss. You want to get to a point where, as you said, you allow yourself to eat a pizza once in a while. You allow yourself to eat whatever you want to eat when you're traveling and working. And that's also part of our job, I guess, when we're so much away from home and our base. Sometimes the only options we have is to order room service or to go out. And it's hard, at least for me, to go out at a restaurant and order a Caesar salad. That's not why I'm at a restaurant. I want to try some of the more fancy or delicious stuff, at least according to me. So I think where you're at right now is a very healthy way of being. And that's where you want to be when you're done with the weight loss. I think in terms of, being very overweight, which I never considered you to be at all. Obviously, you lost some body fat. I can see that, but I never considered you to be very overweight at all. I think when you need a drastic, change, you need drastic motivation sources as well, but as you said, you want to get to a point where you're just feeling good in your own body, whether that's for you, lifting weights a couple of times a week and eating whatever you want to eat a couple of times a week, then that's good. And for me, I'm chasing an Ironman. I want to be the fittest I know, etc., etc. That's what motivates and drives me, and I guess I've always been very competitive in that regard. I don't think I spend time or at least I don't spend a lot of time on anything I'm not competitively driven by, and that's just my persona.
Hmm.
Neither is right or wrong. I envy you sometimes when you're saying like you just feel good. You just want to eat that because it feels good. I can never think of food like that. It's always like a goal or a drive behind it. Okay, I ate a breakfast burrito. I did that because I know I'm gonna go for a run, so that's gonna fuel me up on carbs. Yada yada yada. Like
Uh-huh.
it's almost like a disease in a
It's like
different
a
way.
reward kind of system
Yeah.
that you're using.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think mine is way more boring though. Like it's like,
It's very more chill though. Like it's not
yeah.
mentally taxating to think that much about food, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I still like yeah, I mean, I'll like I'll cook a lot, but it's cuz I like the activity of cooking and it just happens to be
Yeah,
healthy as a byproduct too. But
sure.
let's unpack let's talk about the like the goals you have though, like to wrap this whole
Mhm.
thing up. Like you're saying you want to do an Ironman, like so that is an extremely strenuous test of mental and physical endurance. So what is your progress like in that right now?
I want to do it because I promised myself when I started to lose weight that okay, I'm gonna go from being a 130 kilo dude to do an Ironman. And when I said that back in the days, I was like, yeah, sure, cool. It's never gonna happen. It was just a random goal I set because that would be wild. Nowadays, I think I'm in a good enough shape to actually realistically dream about it. I'm doing my first triathlon event in what that be a month and a half, which is like a quarter of an Ironman.
Yeah.
So it's 900 meters of swimming, 45 kilometers of biking, and 10 kilometers of running, which is for me today. It's easy to go through. Obviously, I want to do it in a good time, and I want to beat a lot of people, but that's easy to just do.
Didn't you have
Then
to
in
learn how to swim?
Yes, I do, and that's my weak point right now. I can swim, and I'm a decent swimmer, but
Yeah.
by no means a good swimmer. It's something that I'm putting in. Well, I want to say I'm putting in a lot of hours to learn it. I'm not, but I should be. I can swim, but it's also boring as fuck to be completely honest, right?
You don't
So
like swimming? I
I hate it.
think
It's
swimming is
it's
more fun than running for me, but
fuck no. It's the
biking is
worst,
the
man.
most fun of those three for me for sure though. But
Yeah, yeah.
but
Me too.
wait, what so what's the hold up with swimming? You just I mean, when did you start swimming? Like have you always been like okay at it or what?
I've
What's
always been able to swim, yeah, but
okay.
when you get into to swimming, I guess like you gotta learn all the different breathing techniques. You gotta learn how to do the strokes properly, like how you kick with your fucking legs, and especially when you look at your triathlon run, right? You don't want to use your legs too much because after
Yeah.
you're swimming, you go for a 180-kilometer bike ride, and then you go for a marathon afterwards. So if you're spending a lot of energy with your legs while you're swimming, you're gonna put yourself in a deficit when you get
Oh,
to the
okay.
biking and the running. So there's a lot of different techniques, and it's just boring, and it's water, and it's cold, and you
Okay.
don't get anywhere. It's like a slow paced sport. Like you're putting in like all this effort, and you go nowhere. And it's just I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
Okay, that's funny though. But you've actually you've run a marathon before, right?
Nope.
Oh, you
I've
haven't
run
run a
a
marathon. You did a half marathon?
half marathon, yeah.
Okay. And what was your, I remember you posting your pace for this. Well, okay. We'll finish this with this because this is what people really care about. They like just hearing
Mhm.
these nice numbers. What was your like pace for that half marathon?
I did it in. I did my best half marathon. I've done a couple. I did the best one ever last summer, so roughly a year ago by now,
Yeah.
in 1 hour and 24 minutes and 10 seconds.
1 hour 20.
And I
Okay.
think that's roughly a pace of 357 per kilometer.
357 per kilometer. Do you know what that, let me see what 357 per kilometer is per mile. Like
There's a calculator for that. Yeah,
357
like
per
six maybe. I don't know.
2 miles. Um, I'm doing a conversion chart. I really want to know this. Um, minutes per kilometer. If you're running it at 357, it is a 621 mile. Holy
621 line.
shit. That's the
Yeah.
fastest I've ever ran a mile in my life. Okay, that's sick. Okay, that is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, my fastest mile time ever was like 620. Right before the pandemic hit. I was
Yeah.
running that, but wow.
I guess I used to be a good runner. I play a lot of football, so you get a lot of running stamina from that. But running, long distance is different. You got to maintain a high tempo, throughout the entire run without crashing at some point. I think I'm a better biker though than I'm a runner nowadays. At least I bike a lot. Been out
You're
biking today as well, and bought my most expensive item I own, which is my bike here in the background as well. So
what
I
kind of bike do
tried
you
to
have? What kind of
convince.
bike is it?
It's I don't know if you can see it. I can maybe
I can
show
kind
a
of
little
see
bit.
it. I can kind of see it
Kind
on
of see
this.
it. Yeah. It's a little bit better now.
Yeah. Oh,
You can bring it
specialized.
forward. Yeah. There you go. It's a specialized.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me, but yeah, a specialized, and I paid. Guess how much it is? Guess how much
If
this
you
is
say
in
it's your
the
most expensive thing, I would guess like $6,000.
9.
9,000. Okay,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Wow, that's like a car. Okay.
That is indeed a car.
That's
That's
like
the
a
thing,
cheap
yeah.
that's like cheap car. Nice. Wow.
It is. But yeah, I saved up for that for like 4 years. I tried to convince myself for 4 years, that you can spend money like that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it though for this. Thanks for wrapping it up nicely by showing everybody your bike and talking about your times and everything.
As if nobody cares.
No, I think people no, the thing is people do because like the whole point of this is that we're trying to like show who we are a little bit along with the CS. Like, yes, some
Sure.
people are just tuning in for the CS, but also people do actually surprisingly sometimes like our personalities here and there. So it's okay. And I wanted to know. So selfishly, I just wanted to ask you these questions, okay?
There you
So
go.
at least one person wanted to know, Pimp. All right.
Good to know. Good to know.
Okay, that's gonna do it. Thanks so much for hopping on. I know you're a super busy dude, and I'm glad we got this done. So thanks.
Of course, man. Pleasure.
Next up, we've got Semphis, a guy with his own objectives, very different objectives in bodybuilding. Obviously, a power lifter before, and really a guy that takes fitness to a whole nother level. I think both of these guys definitely are doing that, and you're going to hear about his journey with that. But first, we're going to be talking about the America's RMR and the fact that he's the coach right now of Nouns and some of the growing pains of being a new coach. This is really his first official coaching gig, and despite all of the wealth of knowledge that he has in the Counter-Strike space, there's still a lot to learn as a coach. So you're going to hear it right from him. All right, we're recording this at 7 p.m. London time. It's 11 a.m. for you, Semphis.
Yep.
It's been a minute actually since we've been on a podcast. Just thought of this. I mean,
Yeah.
we used to do Peaker's Advantage together, kind of like the second wave of it, because the first wave was you, Davey, Daps, FNS, and was there another person on it, or was it the four of you, right?
No, I think it was just the four. I mean, I think we may have brought like a random person on at some point, but yeah, it was mostly just those four. Yeah. Just
Right.
super hard to schedule though. That was like honestly the main reason we never kept doing it. Even with you, like it just felt like so annoying. You get a guest, they just don't show up.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that happened a couple times. So
Yeah, that's like kind of why I moved to this solo format, even though actually honestly I've been doing them less now that I've been on the solo one, but I'm gonna get back on the grind with this stuff. Also we played a season of Open together, actually.
yes,
We came
that
in
was actually fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun actually. Yeah, it was you, me, Valens, and then Sideways and Cobra, right? That's like the final lineup
Yeah.
we were using. Yeah, second.
Yeah.
We were second place, and do you remember the grand finals of that? Because I remember it. It was frustrating.
Yeah, well, you went to Ukraine and you
Yes.
had like super high ping. I still think if you weren't, yeah, I think we would have won Dust 2 if you weren't there. Like I don't know, I think we still lose Nuke, just because just the way they played and the way that we were losing. I don't think it would have changed much. But Dust 2, I remember I was like 20-5 and you were my long player.
Yeah.
And I know there was like twice where like you just couldn't win the duel because like your ping was so high. It's like long's already hard, like it's already a hard spot, and then you give someone like 150 ping and yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I remember.
It was just for fun.
I was using exit lag actually. I think I had like 180 ping, and then when you started using exit lag, it actually gave me 30 better ping. But still, like, I mean, I just remember pretty vividly those guys were trading really well, and unfortunately those guys didn't actually become anything. Like, it's always cool if like the team is like, you remember how like in Open, Freakazoid played it a couple times, Gorilla Gang with Kogu played it, and it's always kind of cool if it's like, they're at least people we respect, but actually, like, in all honesty, those guys, I don't even know if they're still playing. Like, I don't remember any of their names.
Well, I have no way to confirm this, so if you're listening, guys that beat us, don't take this as an insult, but I heard there was like other people were on their accounts, like they're like
Oh.
account sharing, like other like main premier players. I don't know if it's true. I don't really care. I was just playing for Open for fun. Like,
Yeah.
it's nothing to me if that happened or not. Like, it does not matter. I don't know. I just thought it was fun to play with like Soham and you and stuff again. Like, because I played on teams with Soham like many years ago, but our paths never really like allowed us to be on the same team again. Although it almost happened a few times, but
Yeah, okay. So let's get into the meat and bones of this podcast. It's that you are a coach now for Nouns. This is essentially your first foray into coaching. You have a little bit of experience before, but like how has this experience been for you so far, coaching Tier 2 NA?
It was a little bit different, than I originally thought. I started with them in Gaming Gladiators with quite a different lineup as well. So, depending on who you have as players on the team, that changes the way that you're going to coach and kind of like do things. Because like sometimes my job feels like making sure the team doesn't implode on itself, if that makes sense. Like there's like you're managing more like personalities and people that are mad at each other. Whereas like right now, I feel like we're in a lot better spot in terms of like there isn't like all this internal issues. Whereas like, maybe 6 months ago, I was getting a lot of, just mitigating people, right? Like oh, this guy's not good enough. This guy, we could pick up this guy. And I'm just, in my mind, it's you always want to give people a solid chance to prove themselves first before you make a replacement, right? So if I don't feel like we're doing the right strats and setups and like everything isn't being done correctly, it's hard for me to be like, oh, well, that guy's bottom fragging, so it's his fault, let's cut him. If the other stuff isn't being done correctly, because then it's almost like you're scapegoating someone, because how do you know it's his fault? If he's a lurker on the side of the map and everyone just screwing up the default dying and he's left in 1v5s every round, like I can't really blame him for being like performing poorly. So for me, it's like it's trying to explain that to people can be difficult because they, someone is not fragging, they automatically just assume like, oh, well, if they fragged more, we'd win more, right? They don't, sometimes people don't always account for it. So yeah, it's a little bit different than I thought with some of those aspects, but we've definitely like improved them over time. And I think like the attitudes that I had like a year ago to right now are like a lot different. So whenever people come into the team or whatever, I'm like, you don't know, it was a lot worse before, this is actually better. Like it's always a work in progress, right? Yeah. Like that's another thing is like, I think people, they want things fixed in like a day or something. And it's just everything takes time, and not everything happens like super quickly, which can be frustrating, but yeah.
Okay, so we talked when we were in Monterey before the match that you had against Liquid, where you pushed them to 3 maps. You actually made them try really hard, especially once you guys started winning Ancient. And I remember, like, I said this on broadcast because I thought it was a really funny detail. After you won Ancient, you told me going into that day, you're like, if they pick Ancient, that's almost just an automatic loss for us. So what do you think? Yeah. What do you think happened? Let's actually just break down that BO3 a little bit with Liquid. What do you think happened on Ancient that allowed you guys to actually take that from Liquid?
Well, I'll start really quick on Inferno. Like Inferno is like our pick, right? So when you see that map, like pool, it's like Inferno. Okay, that's a good map for us, right? Inferno's been notoriously like one of our top 2 maps. It kind of hovers depending on the time, like. When all our strats are kind of new and fresh, we own everyone on Inferno, and then we kind of get figured out a little bit. And then, it's kind of one of those processes where we're not always the best on Inferno, but when people don't know what we're doing, we're really good on it. So when we lost that map, the next 2 maps are Ancient and Nuke. So like instantly it's kind of like, oh shit, and during the boot camp and prior to the boot camp, we were practicing Anubis and Ancient. We kind of kept swapping back and forth, right? Because we never really felt super confident on either. Anubis just felt like so random, and our practice quality on it wasn't like the highest, so it was hard to know, are we truly good on Anubis? Because we did beat some people in practice, but it's just scrims, and the results were random. But I think everyone was a little bit more comfortable on Ancient, just like the map has been out longer, like they had more reps and more, just kind of just like more, like they're more confident on it. So we kind of ended up just banning Anubis, unless, we knew for a fact you didn't play Anubis and you played Ancient, then we might, ban Ancient or something like that, right? Just as a, it's smarter to do that anyways.
Just to flex the pool a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when we went to Ancient, basically, all the prep and everything, that's not really going to magically win you Ancient when you're not like as prepared as Liquid, right? Like, so I was just basically saying like, look, if we do the same stuff that we did on our last match on Ancient that we lost, like we're going to lose versus Liquid. So I was like, take the gloves off, don't play stupid, still do like the normal plays and the normal setups and the normal strats. But if you have a feeling that if you double push this like a spot, like long B, for example, or you want to like take a duel, just take it and win it. Like be confident, don't play scared, because if you start winning those little battles and you start doing little double peaks and little pushes on timings and you start winning those, it becomes really hard for the other team because you start becoming really unpredictable. And while they're definitely a better team on Ancient, I think we just kind of like guerrilla warfared them a little bit on CD side.
Yeah.
Just because like I don't think they really like expected us to do it was a thing. Is like they prepped. I mean, I talked to OC in the hotel a little bit, and they just didn't really expect us to pick or to let Ancient go through. And when they watch our demo on it, they're like, this is kind of like a no-brainer, right? Like we just don't look good on it. So even if they weren't super confident on it, it just like the way they watch us play and the way that they know their map is, it just seemed like I would have done the same thing. Like if I was in their position, like I would have been like, yeah, we have to pick Ancient. Like these guys look so terrible on it. So then it was just kind of a combo of like, we still had some good plays and some good calls. I'm just saying, like, I think it was the combo of just like getting a little bit more into it, and once we started coming back and the score got better, people started believing it a little bit more and they started getting more into the game. That's one thing that's a little frustrating about coaching at the RMRs. Like you can't really hype your teammates up, you can't say nice round, you can't high five, so you almost feel a little worthless as a coach. A little bit.
I mean, you can't do stuff in the middle of like or basically when a round's over. In most tournaments you're going to be able to give them like a high five or like just emote.
Well, even saying like nice round, something's just simple, like a high five, like you can't do anything. So like when someone has a nice round, sometimes they'll even like look it back at me, and I just like I don't do anything because like, and I know some coaches will like they'll kind of do it, but I'm just like, I'm not gonna pull a Hunden over here, So.
Yeah, I guess maybe we could unpack that a little bit. I guess I want to know your opinion. Like, you've been a person before that has recognized the possibility of cheating in Tier 1 CS. And so does it feel fair or just to you that given the reason that Valve did this is because of all the coach bug abusers, and like they knew that basically every coach, if they're given the opportunity, will do anything they can in their power to get an advantage. So when you're now on the receiving end of that as a coach at a Valve sanctioned event, doesn't it feel like it's a bit much, or do you think it's fine?
Obviously from my opinion, I think it's a bit much. Even when I was a player, I thought it was a bit much, obviously because you can be biased when it's your role or like your job, right? But I honestly just want Valve to have a conversation and just decide what they want from coaching, because I think that's the biggest issue is no one really knows where they actually stand on the issue, like what their ideal coaching situation would be, or if they just want coaches removed from the game entirely. I don't necessarily agree with it, because even if you look at professional sports, like a lot of these guys have like 4 coaches themselves. They'll have like a nutritionist, they'll have like their training coach, they'll have like someone that might help their sleep, and maybe they'll have a doctor. Like at a high level, there's performance enhancing drugs they're doing and stuff like that. They have a team of people basically like around them making sure they perform well. So when that happens in Counter-Strike, it's like, sure, we could probably do some of that stuff like outside of the actual event, right? Like you could still have support staff, for scrims and practice and stuff. But I'm just very confused as to why they think it's like a bad thing to have coaching. Like it elevates the game, right? Like when you have a coach, when you have a secondary coach, when you have analysts, that just like expands the counter stratting. It expands like the detail that every team is going to be putting into the rounds, right? Like, making sure the timings are good, everything is perfect. Because I'll say that the one thing that I can say that as a coach I can do really, really, really well that a player could never do is keep the timings tight on the map. Like if I'm allowed freedom of like to talk whenever I want, which is most like online things or whatever. If you're on Mirage, I can be like, underpass guy's not ready. I can say like, they're ready con. Like I can just give constant updates of like when the timings are ready and when they're not ready. Because sometimes people will be like, get ready. I'll be like, wait, no. And just because I know they're too far. And that like those little things actually make a big difference when you're playing the best teams. They might not matter as much when the team's a little bit worse than you.
Yeah, like an example would be like, because you knew like 3 or 4 of their players were at going for mid control on Mirage, let's say, and your teammates wanted to go for like a flash into ramp play, but you knew that it's like 5 seconds too fast. Like there's no way that those T's could have rerouted to ramp by then, so the flash play it wouldn't find anything. So like you can keep track of that. Yeah.
No, for sure. Like I can even say
Would
Sorry,
you want
I was just gonna say like
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna say
go,
like
go for it.
I can just be like, yo, there's 4 mid, like you said. I was like, you'll push up or B or something. Like I can make like little comms like that where I with the especially with the prep, like if I've watched demos, I can know that where their lurker kind of like his tendencies, and it's really easy to kind of like tell people where they can move. But obviously, I get why Valve doesn't want that to happen in like a live event and just have the coach become like this micromanager. But like, you should be able to do a tiny bit more. I feel like it would be nice.
I think it's fair to say that the quality of CS would be better, and if we're all just striving to have the highest quality of CS played at all times, like the old Navi way where Starix was apparently just microing everybody, doing everything, in some ways I actually wouldn't mind that too much, but I do see the case for Valve where they're saying, they want any 5 people that queue up or like that want to grind to have the same capacity to succeed as like a team that has a support staff. But like, if you gave them coaching opportunities in the game, if there were like some feature like that, they kind of would have that. But it's almost just like they didn't want to implement a live coaching feature into the game like on their own, like in matchmaking. And so they kind of make this argument that it's almost like, well, it's like every tournament has this function, but you guys just don't have it in matchmaking, which is some reason a gold standard that they're trying to hold competitive play to, which it just doesn't even really function like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't really understand like where they're coming from with a lot of these things. Like, I guess I'd have to think about how to word it. It's like, so they don't want they don't want to build the coaching into the game. No one cares if coaching is built into the game, right? Like it's irrelevant. Like I understand where they're coming from because they already don't like that we play 128 tick. Like I've already known this for years. Like when I talk to them at the Valve majors, this is a different team of a different people. So if you're currently working at Valve and you're like, that's not true. Okay, the different teams, different people, I'm sure things change a little bit over the years, but from what I was told is they regretted even letting us do 128 tick servers and creating our own community servers because they wanted everything to be streamlined just 64 through. So like they already like have their own opinions about how everything should be run. So they already don't agree with 128 tick. They don't agree with coaching. So I mean, like the whole pro scene is basically thinking 2 different things than Valve because I think the whole pro scene likes coaches and they like 128 tick servers. So Valve doesn't. So like, and their argument of like, okay, well, a regular team can't have a coach or they can't afford a coach or whatever. Okay, well, so Liquid makes $100,000 every week. Like, so they don't have to work. They don't go to school. Like like that's unfair. You know, like everything's unfair. When you get better, you get more resources. That's just like how it works. Like when you tear a muscle in the NFL or NBA or whatever, they fly you to Sweden. You get stem cells injected into your knees and you're back in like a month. Like regular people don't afford those things. You might never play basketball again. It's just life. Like it's not always fair. But if you want the highest level of competition and everything to be like the best it possibly can be, then those things are necessary, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I agree with you that, I think from a purist standpoint, I think I would just want to see the highest level of play possible. I don't know what the balance would be for me. I haven't really thought about this too much about, like, should the coach be able to speak freely throughout the entirety of the round? I wouldn't mind it being played with at certain tournaments, if I'm being honest, but, like, I don't know. Let's move to something else. I have a question kind of about like.
Well, just really quick though, I'll just say like I'm not saying that the coaches should be able to talk infinitely. I'm just saying that I do think coaches are good for the game, and I think that there needs to be a discussion about how much they can do, and I think they should be able to do a little bit more than they're able to do at the current RMR events. That's all I'm saying is like I'm not saying they should be able to call strats or dictate rounds 24/7, but I don't know, 4 30-second pauses, no high fives, no celebrating. It's pretty lame, honestly. It really is just depressing to be a coach like at those events. Just
I guess I could say I would actually not mind if they just let you guys talk in freeze times also if I'm being real. Like it's almost a risk. Like you would kind of have to like create a chain of command in those moments anyways, because it could easily, if a team is not prepared in those moments, just get too hectic. Like the coach and the IGL might battle for the whole 20 seconds and then you just wasted your entire freeze time. So I think that's a risk worth taking.
Like I get the logic of like you don't want the coach to become the caller. Okay, that's fair. And I get like pretty much if you let the coach talk outside of the freeze times, he can like secretly call. Like that's I'm sure that's the logic, right? It's like I say like nice shit boys, that means do strat B. You know, like you can easily encode like things. So like I totally get that from their perspective is like it's very difficult to let the coach like talk and not let him call, because at that point like how can you stop it? Like then people will come like, oh, if I tap your left shoulder, it's this strat. You know, if I kick your, you know, like it's so there's so many ways to bypass it. So I don't have a good solution for that. I just wish there was a little bit more we could do. So.
Yeah, I want to know because I know that you're pretty heavy on the prep and everything like that. And I remember you saying this a long time ago that the way you watch Pro CS is that you don't really watch the broadcast, or at least at the time you said you didn't watch like any broadcast, you just watch demos. Is that still the case?
I watch live events, right? Like but I do prefer like it's not that I don't like the casters or anything. It's I want to click on the people I want to watch is the main thing, right? So if they're playing Nuke, for example, I might not care at all about the ramp player. I might be more interested about like, you know, Electronic versus Rain outside or something, like, because that's maybe an issue my team's been having. Like maybe my outside lurker isn't doing the best job. So I'm just trying to like, you know, look to see like, oh, is there something cool they're doing? Because, you know, a lot of times you just watch games and you just notice something cool, you steal it or show your teammate or whatever. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I just find it harder with the broadcast just because I don't have control. That's all.
Would you I mean, remember, like, actually, I think you can still do it for majors. You can use Go TV and you can just watch it yourself.
Yeah, I will go in there usually. I'll sometimes have the broadcast on. It just depends on what I'm doing. Like sometimes I have podcasts on in the background. Like I don't know. It just depends really, or who's casting. I won't make names or anything, but like everyone has preferences though, and it's not even anything personal, right? Like there's some people I really like them, but maybe their casting isn't my style. Maybe it's too hype. Like maybe they're too like wild, and like to me, I'm like more of a low energy person. Like I'm not super high, so I do better with like, you know, dry humor and just like that kind of stuff, right? So. It's all preference, but it's nothing personal, and people sometimes take things personally, and it's just like.
So are you a bigger? You're not an XQC fan. You'd be more of a Shroud fan if you're just watching a stream.
You know what's actually really funny about that is I used to watch XQC when he had like 80 viewers on Overwatch. Like when he used to play Winston only and just run around, and he would talk at like 1,000,000 miles a minute, and I was just like enthralled by this guy. I was like, this guy's a streamer. I was like, he's made to stream. And then now he's like this massive streamer. I was like, yep, I fucking knew it. But yeah, in general, I would. If I'm just chilling, Shroud, you know, if I'm want to be laugh or whatever, I'd watch XQC though. Like he'd be definitely funnier. But
okay, actually,
I'm definitely more mellow.
Now, like, what do you actually watch streamers? Like, do you?
Well, mostly just RMR. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, I mostly like it's like hit or miss, right? Like I actually watch more of the speedrunners. I really like I watch like CSGO. Like sometimes I'll you know, if I know the person, I'm more likely to watch them. So like if like Flums has a match or something, I might hop in there and like watch a couple of Cooper or something. You know, like people I know, like you know, might hop in their stream for a little bit. But I don't religiously watch streams really.
Okay.
Okay. And if I do, like I really like the Zelda or Super Mario speedrunners. I don't know. I really like that shit. It's impressive.
Yeah, I used to watch like a decent amount of Simply, I think, but like I don't really watch as much. I don't watch too many streams in general anymore. Speaking of like you picking up early on stuff like with XQC before he popped off, I remember you picked up on JAME before he really got big also. Like you were saying, we like early Vanguard days when people were just like barely, like the tip of the iceberg was presented to everybody where they're like, oh, it's a slow, savvy style. And then JAME goes on and wins a major. Is there anybody that you're reading right now in terms of the meta that they're playing and you think that they might be somebody that's defining the future of how CS should be played?
I haven't watched a ton of this person yet to like really conclusively say anything, but that Nertz guy looks really good to me right now, just because his role isn't super easy either. He's like more of like an entry, and he's like putting up crazy numbers, and I've seen like a couple rounds where he's just in no man's land, just twirling around, just shooting people in the head, and I'm just like, all right, man, you got it. So sometimes with these type of guys, you got to see if they can keep doing it, for longer than a month or two. Like some people listening, they might be like, oh, what do you mean? It's like some people just pop off for 1 to 3 months and they're just actual gods, but that's not their real level. They're overperforming for like a brief period. So for me to like rate someone as like truly like a high level, they have to do it for like a little bit longer.
Yeah.
A player that I think people know is good, that I think is absolutely insane, that I don't understand why they're not on a better team, is Mir though. Like,
yeah.
like
The guy
I know he's
on
not really
Vega and Spirit, and yeah.
That guy's like the Russian Nico, man. He just runs around with low sense and just never misses, and like he's aggressive as hell, and he's pretty fun to watch. But yeah,
I used to
don't
watch
know.
some of his demos because I mean, any aggressive player that can find consistent success, I think that's just, as a rifler, I think that's just straight up the hardest role in modern CS.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like Insani is another player that like
oh yeah,
who's kind of like really aggressive, and he, like at least on CT, like some people they're more of like a little bit in the middle of the pack on T. They don't really always go first, and then on CT they're just like aggressive gods that just fly around like looking for picks. And he's dropped 30 on my team more than any player ever. Like scrims, matches, like no single player I don't think has ever consistently dropped 30s. So like
yeah.
in terms of that, like I was very interested in it, and not to call them like online people love to like put words in your mouth, but I was very interested to see how he was going to perform at LAN. And the very first match, I think he went like 9-18, and I'm like, all right, first match, nerves, like you get a pass at an RMR, in my opinion, like get the nerves out. And then he started owning, and dropped like 30-15 again, and the next 35-10 or something, and I was like, all right, there he is.
Yeah.
Like, so he is good on LAN, because if you've never played a LAN before, people sometimes don't realize that like you can be a god at home, but it's not always the same like when you go to the actual event.
How about looking at like the bigger picture for like a team? Like, are there any teams right now that are playing styles that you think are meta defining?
I think the people that I see play like the most different is probably Heroic, and just like their CTs are so interesting in how, like, if you actually go and watch their CTs and look at how they rotate and how they move around the map, like they're accounting for a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is due to prep, I'm sure. Like obviously I can't know, I'm not in their team speaks, but sorry, Hunden, I'm not as good of a coach as you, but like yeah, so like they don't, like they have like the most interesting style, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree or
I
disagree.
agree. I literally just made a YouTube video, and I was like, I think when people at the end of 2022, I was thinking like, okay, a lot of people now are gonna like try to copy who did well in 2022, and the teams to copy were like G2, Outsiders, or Heroic. And I think most people were like, okay, let's try to copy Heroic, because you don't need insane players to do what they're doing. You need good reads and good plans.
It's hard though, because if you don't have experience, it's really hard to play like Heroic. Like it's like you said, it's a lot about reads and a lot of personal decisions of like where you should go. Like if you're the Mirage A player, like do you push halls, do you push ramp, do you play retake? Like a lot of it is based on like what the other team is doing and how your teammates are moving. So I don't know how much they have pre-planned, like preset rotations, and like if this happens, go here. If this happens, go here. Like I don't know, but yeah, either way, if you can replicate their CT, you'll have a lot of success. Like because it's very safe too, because they gamble a lot in the middle of the rounds just based off info, and if they end up gambling wrong, they just save most of the time. And any players listening that are trying to get better, like save more on CT when you're at like it's the number one mistake I see like average teams make, is they try to go for every retake, like 3v3s, 3v4s. It's like, if you are trapped behind and you have no construction control and spawn smoked on Inferno, and it's a 3v3, and you have no nades, it's probably best just to save a lot of times. Like I know it's a 3v3 and you think, oh, we can do it. It's just like maybe if you have 10K in the bank on everyone, then go for it, have fun. But if it's a close game, I'd say like right there, most people should save.
Right.
And most people don't. So heroic style, it lends itself to that as well. It's like it's also a fairly safe style. In terms of like a team to copy, I do think it's easier to copy like G2 though. Like if you were just to go like watch a demo and like just copy their strats, like I think FaZe is a good one to copy too, because it's a lot of like set plays. I don't know. It's like it all depends on your players. If you have a lot of really dumb players, like that like I don't mean that like they're in like a condescending way, but like they're not the best at like reading mid round and stuff. They're just have them do set things. Like everything's set, so they don't have to think about it. And that way they know like at 130 I got to walk underpass a Mirage. At 110 I got to smoke the top. Like when people know things, then you can also hold them accountable more, because if they don't throw the smoke, they can't be like, oh well, I didn't know this happened. It's like, well, it's not this. That's you have to do that on the strat. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like a pretty solid philosophy in general. Like you would always see, I think even just going back in the last like 8 years of CSGO, like the teams that were always best at defaulting, I think of like Fnatic in their prime, and it's just because they had more experience than basically everybody, so they could handle such a variety of situations and just kind of manufacture openings for themselves, even with just like a solo play on one side of the map or something. And then I think of like the other extreme is like what Extra Salt were doing when they were kind of rising in the ranks. It was just like set piece, like always these set pieces, and just like because they have a deep strat book, like they'll have like 15 T-side rounds that they can run on any gun round. Like then you'll get really comfortable with those types of rounds. And it took until like I'd say like a year and a half ago until JT finally was like, okay, we can default a little bit more with this complexity lineup because we have faith in some of our players. What would you say like your team's balances on Nouns?
I think we're like kind of in the middle right now where we're getting better. I think we try really hard in a lot of our practices to not run set pieces all the time, because we definitely are good at them. Like when we do like an inner strat on nuke, where we do like my players are very good at hitting the nades they need to hit. They don't miss nades like a whole lot or anything. Like the timings are good, and they'll commit. Like if they have to go while they're blind, they'll go when they're blind. Like that's the one thing, like Carson and stuff, is he might not have the best reputation, but if you tell him to take a knife out and jump through a smoke and die, he will. So like those type of players are valuable to have on a team. I would say like if I go back in time to like the best lineup to like play like just kind of loose was just like any lineup that I was on originally with like Daze, Sean, TCK, Nothing, Hiko, Brax, like all those lineups, like my Quantic C9 days, early complexity days, it was so easy to do defaults and stuff because every player came from 1.6 pretty much, or the source players they watched 1.6, like Days, like they aspired to play smarter and like 1.6 players, because 1.6 was known to be a little bit slower, more methodical, and source was known to be kind of like a little bit more reckless. So like playing with the older lineups, like man, it was very eye-opening when I started playing with younger players and realizing, okay, they don't have the same internal timings as me. They don't have the same thought process. They're not going to take ground just because I said something. I have to tell them to do it. So like if you play with a really experienced player and you're saying like, yo, I'm getting pushed over here, he might instantly be like, okay, he's getting pushed over there. That means this spot's open. I'm just going to take that. And he'll do it without being told. Whereas like a lesser experienced player, he might hear that and he'll sit there. He won't move, and he'll just keep holding his spot. So you can teach these things, but until they become ingrained and they naturally happen, it feels awkward just playing so many years one style. So I think this team now, like Nouns, is more going into that direction of they're getting better and better at like the more like nuanced rounds where things are breaking down more, 3v3s, 4v4s, because a lot of that just turns into personal decisions. There's a million ways you can play a 3v3. There's not usually like an objectively correct answer, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's different solutions for most things in CS, which is why the game's exciting. Yeah. Okay, with nouns, actually, I think one interesting side to you guys is that like you're funded by a crypto. Basically, you're funded by a cryptocurrency, and I guess I just wanted people to know about it because I think I know most of what's going on. So kind of like in your words, what's kind of going on there? It's like yeah. I want you to lay down the groundwork of what's going on with your esport org.
Okay, I'm just telling my girlfriend to bring me something.
Sure. I'll cut this out. I'll just cut it from the.
No. It's for what you're just saying,
Oh.
or you can cut it. So
Okay.
if she's here, but yeah. So can you repeat that last part really quick again?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So basically, so nouns obviously it's kind of different from normal esports orgs where it's not like just a head of people that are like investing into it. You don't have like I don't think there's like a CEO or president of the org or anything that's trying to like it's like it's a DAO that is funded by basically people that hold this cryptocurrency. But I guess in your words, what is your relationship with having an esports org that is so, I guess, progressive in the tech space?
It is it's definitely cool, and it's definitely a much different experience for me, coming from like Complexity and C9 and Envy and those type of orgs that are a lot more like typical, have like Logitech for your sponsor, funding is coming from elsewhere, whereas we don't really have any sponsors on Nouns directly. It's all coming from, like you said, the DAO, where they crowdfund it essentially with votes and stuff. And I'm not the number one expert on how everything works, but as far as I understand, Nouns has like a big treasury of like 100-200 million dollars, something like that. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it's a lot of money, and it sits there in a treasury. And then people can go and do proposals where they can ask for X amount of money to fund their project. So when Sasquatch, who's like the owner of our team, or he's like the highest person with Mock probably on our on Nouns, he
The guy
started
from
reaching out.
Philadelphia?
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's
Oh,
two
same.
Sasquatches. There's a
Oh.
source Sasquatch and this one. I think he has been to Frag though.
Oh, I don't. I think the source one is the guy that did Frag, so I don't
Okay,
know if it's
so
the
it's
same guy.
probably different
Okay.
then. Um, but either way, he reached out to like the Nouns DAO people and did the proposal, and he started small, and now they're getting bigger, and they basically like, I'm probably butchering things, so
I
don't
think it's
quote
all
me
like
directly, but
transparent, so if people wanted to look up everything about this, they could. But like, just I guess in general terms, like if you can
yeah,
summarize it.
I was just gonna say like it was like they basically propose it with like a lot of like Nouns cares a lot about like exposure, like viewership. So like they really like the noggles. This is what I was asking for. So we got these custom made noggles. So these are like $300 each. These ones or something. So they're
Okay.
like the fancier ones.
Yeah.
So we got these ones. And so it's just like little things like that. Like they just want to kind of like promote their brand, like have noggles everywhere on like gifts, and our players wear them for pictures and stuff, and just to like keep pushing Nouns forward. So the fact that we make majors and we're getting like the viewership of like the Liquid games and the past RMR playing, Imperial, Fallen's guys qualifying for IM Dallas is like, we're a little bit different than other orgs where obviously we're always wanting to win and improve, but exposure is definitely the most important thing for these guys, right? To make sure that we're getting viewership. And as long as we're doing that, it's kind of like a best of both worlds. There's not a whole lot of pressure to win the event, but there obviously is pressure to do well and to make events, right?
Yeah.
And this is just my opinion. Is I've played on teams with incentives and contracts and stuff. You win an event, you get $1,000. You win an event, you get an extra 10K. Like you get placed in the top 5 on HLTV.org and you get an extra $2,000 a month on your salary. Like there's a lot of different ways they'll add incentives to contracts, and I've never felt like any of them has made my teammates try harder. Like I've never felt like my teammates are like, yo, we better win this event so we get an extra $2,000. Like no one has ever thought like that or cared, because it's just like you're playing, you already want to win, right? Like, that's why you're playing Counter-Strike, right? Like if you're only playing for the money, I think it becomes kind of apparent, and you probably aren't going to be the best player, and you're going to get replaced kind of naturally anyways. I'm not saying there's no one that is good in collecting paychecks and can kind of just coast through, because I'm sure there's some very talented people that can do that. But like by and large, I'd say most people are competitive and they want to win. So those type of incentives, I don't think they're super great. So, or I don't think they do a ton. So that's why I'm like, the way that they have it set up, where it's just like just making the events and just playing well at them is the incentives that they need. And that's all my players want anyways, right? Like, we just want to make all the events and have a chance to perform at them. When you go there, are we expecting to win every event? No. Do we want to? Of course, right? Like, so it's all about just getting more experience. You know, if we could beat G2 or, you know, take a map off G2, it's all progress, right? It's all good for Nouns. It's good for us, right? So I think this org and like the way that our team is set up is actually good for each other too, because it's not a whole ton of pressure, but obviously there is obligations, right? Like you have to be relevant, but you're not getting cut because you didn't win an event or something, right? So it's good like that, I think.
Okay, that's seems like a healthy relationship for like what your team is and like where you guys are in the space. Like, I mean, just
well, I mean, all our stuff is open too, so I can even say like they don't take any sticker money, they don't take any prize money, you know. So like we get to keep 100% of that. So like they're not a greedy org, right? So, and then that's also factored into our salaries and stuff. You know, the fact that, you know, maybe, you know, I'll just use EG's academy teams. They make a little bit more than us. I won't say specific numbers, but they also have to share prize money and sticker money. So it's like you have to factor all those things in. You know, are you going to win cash cups? Are you going to win like smaller events? Are you going to win Philadelphia's? Are you going to go to big events? Like, maybe it is better to have an org that's going to take a cut and get a higher salary. It might be, but not always. So those are things that I think we have a pretty good situation right now. I think if we do make it to the next level, like, you know, make a major or win a tournament or place really well, we'll start needing to ask for more salary and stuff because it will be worth more. But I think right now the deal's pretty fair overall.
Okay. What is your support staff? It's just the 6 of you, right?
Yeah, so we have us 6, and then my girlfriend kind of helps with she was in school, so she was doing like the social media stuff, like the Instagram, running that, and then she comes to events and just kind of helps like if we need coffees, if you like if someone forgets something in the hotel, if you
kind of like manager duties.
Yeah, because when I went to the Swedish RMR, I didn't realize how much shit I was going to have to do because we didn't really have a manager. And I basically was like a coach and a manager. And I was like, holy shit, like I'm responding to all these emails and texts and, you know, your team needs to do X, Y, or Z. But I'm also trying to coach them like in practice and stuff and like do prep. And it was just like a lot, right? For like when you only have so much time in the day. So I think this helps. And then we obviously have like some other staffing. For anyone that didn't know, the proposal got passed, so that means we're funded to the end of the year, and we also have a decent amount of money allocated for like a sports therapist type thing. So we have a couple different ones we're talking to. I'm not officially sure who we've like ended up on, but either way, these groups are going to come in and try to help me and the team be a little bit more professional in terms of like our attitudes, our work ethic, the way to structure our practices and stuff, because I'm not here to say that I'm the best coach in the world and that I do nothing wrong and I can't be better, because I do know that there are things that I can do better, and maybe I should be harder on people in certain areas when I'm not. So I think this is going to help me a lot to be able to like have other people to talk to about my issues without kind of just being on my own. A lot right now is like it's all up to me. Like, do I yell at this guy? Do I fine him? Do I let it go? You know, it's sometimes it's an easy, you know, it's easy to bitch at someone. Oh, you're 30 minutes late, dude. What the fuck? You know, like you've been late 3 times this week. Like, what's going on? Like, there's sometimes where it's very clear that you have to lay down the law. There's other times where it's not, right? So the times where it's a little bit more gray area, that's the ones that I have trouble with, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll use an example from other teams. Like I won't use names, but they're from like they placed top 3 at a major before, so they're very good.
Okay.
So like there's been players where I know the coach and he would be like, yeah, this player, if he makes a mistake and I talk to him right after, it won't do anything. Like he'll just be super defensive, he'll get angry. The teammates are going to notice that he's being like not addressing the issue and he's deflecting. It's going to make them upset that he's not addressing the issue right now, and it's going to ruin practice. So he's like, for this player, I always wait till after the practice day and then I drag him into a channel and then we talk specifically about the issues after it's over, because he's a lot more receptive to them. He's like, that still doesn't always make some players on the team happy because they want it to be addressed. They don't think it's fair that he gets like this special treatment. But that's part of managing people, right? Everyone's a little different, and sometimes you can't change it. You either have to replace them or work around the issue. So then you have to kind of decide, like, is that person worth replacing? Would that be more of a negative or more of a positive? So yeah.
Okay. About I think it would be a shame to miss this topic because it's kind of just been the buzz for the last like 4 years since basically ESL Pro League moved away and out of the North America. People have been kind of talking about the death of NACS, but where do you think it is right now in its life cycle? Is it where are you picturing it?
I mean, I definitely think like the lack of practice really hurts here, especially when Fury and Liquid and like Complexity are all gone. There's really not a lot of teams scrim anymore. I really think Pro League coming back would help a lot. You know, when we had a couple different Brazilian teams, an Australian team or two, all the NA teams around here, you know, EG, you know, Liquid
there was
being
like LG,
home
there
more.
was like Rise, there were so many Ghosts, you know, there were a lot.
Yeah, it depends on what year you want to go to,
Yeah,
but yeah,
sure.
there was like more like 12 solid teams to scrim from, whereas right now it feels like there's 3 and you can't even scrim them every day. And sometimes the Brazilian teams go home for a bit, sometimes they're in Europe boot camping, and like it just becomes really messy. Like at the start of the new year, during January, we wanted to start practicing a little bit earlier. We literally played advanced scrims for like 3 weeks. Like, and it almost gets to the point where it's like, is this even worth our time? Like, and I don't mean that in a negative way of being like they're wasting our time, but it's like, is only playing low quality opponents beneficial to us? Like, or is it creating bad habits? You know, like that was more of where my brain was going, is like, not necessarily that playing people's bad. Like, it's more like, I don't want to get too comfortable doing things that aren't going to be great versus the better teams. And yeah, so I did definitely think like bringing back Pro League to NA would help so much. Just flying everyone to Europe and having people over there all the time, it really, really hurts the practice for the tier 2 teams here. Like it really, really does.
Yeah, okay. Is Pain playing in NA a lot of the time?
They are. I mean, I would say the teams we scrim the most are like MIBR, Pain, and then, you know, some advanced teams we play like Detonate, you know, Strife, you know, those type of teams. It's just we don't get like Complexity, Liquid, Furia. EG's main team we get a decent amount lately, but not so much when they're gone. It just depends on like what events they're at. But
yeah, because they're a partner team, so they're in Europe a lot.
Yeah, and then we did scrim the academy teams a lot. You know, EG the black and white. But yeah.
Okay, what is your let's do one EG opinion, and then we'll move on to the last topic. So what? Okay, I guess for EG right now, they just picked up Refresh for Hexed. Like, what do you make of the future of this team, or what do you think they should do?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I feel like they went this weird route where they have these 2 academy teams, and they kind of pulled from them, but not really. Like, they picked up Wiz and then they said like, oh, screw it. Like they went with Refresh. I'm thinking like, why didn't you give George or someone a shot?
Yeah. Was
George
on your team?
Yes.
Yeah, he's good.
He's definitely like a very skilled player, but I just felt like that would have like made more sense with like their whole project aspect of having the academy teams to pull from. And it's like, Refresh has way more experience, and he's played at the highest level one big events. So I'm sure that is like one of the reasons they went with him. And George doesn't have that type of experience. But I think George is like a better gamble for like the long term. But Refresh is probably better like just right now.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's hard to know exactly like why people make decisions, but it definitely felt like they kind of pulled Wiz too, and it's like it's not that I think Wiz is bad, and like people watch these things and they think you're talking shit or whatever, but it's just like I don't with EG's type of money, it's like why not get a better opper, like no offense or anything,
would
know,
you
like
get Junior? What do you think? Who do you think's better right now, Junior or Wiz?
I think Junior has done like he hit like when my team plays him, I noticed Junior's impact more.
I think Junior's definitely better. Like
overall. So
yeah.
So I but then sometimes people have that stigma of like, oh well, he's had his chances, like oh he played on Fury, he played on Complexity, and like he got like a bunch of chances, he just didn't really perform, and then people are like, well, why am I going to give him another chance? So I can kind of see that logic, but then you're also EG, and if you have enough money to get Refresh, it's like you don't have enough money to buy like Oscar or something like like and like I mean I've said this for a while, and like Oscar's actually insane, like legitimately he's insane, like at Counter-Strike he's really 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 good. So it's like you have this guy that's won tier 1 events, he's been like top 10 player in the world, he's sitting there, you don't even try him out. Like I can totally understand like trying him and be like, look, this dude's fucking weird, we don't want to play with him. Like because like like
we've heard,
all right, fair enough.
Heard the personality stuff with Oscar, that sometimes he's hard to work with.
And that's fair. If you try him out, it doesn't work out, that's fair. But I feel like they don't even like people don't even give these guys a shot, and it's like I've heard through the grapevine that some orgs look at like ages and they'll be like, oh, he's a little bit too old. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if that's like 100% true, but it's like, who cares? Like, is he killing people in the server?
Exactly.
Does he kill people? Does he drop 20 kills every game?
People
yes.
Are acting,
all right.
People are acting like with these ages, like if you're past your prime of like 24 years old, you're just done in this game, which has almost like there's like okay, there was like some HLTV article about people's ages and their average rating or something like that, but like I actually think that it's more about just like how your life priorities have changed, and not like like your reaction time doesn't significantly drop off when you hit like some magical age or anything like that. Or what do you think on that?
I think my reactions are faster now than they ever were. I think obviously for people that don't know, I have eye disease now, and I lost a lot of vision in my left eye, so it doesn't really matter if I want to be good again. I probably never will be back to my old level, but I never felt like I got worse because I got older. I felt like I got worse because I started like wanting to have a girlfriend and go to the gym more, and like I started just prioritizing CS less. I have a very addictive personality, and it can become like problematic in like it's not like I have an addictive personality where I have a drink of alcohol and I can't stop drinking or something like that. But like if I care about something, like I'm like, this is fun, I will try to be 100%. Like for example, I played Dota. I thought it was super fun. I was basically trying to go in pro in Dota at the same time as CS, and I eventually had to be like, I can't play Dota anymore. Like I'm just watching all the replays every day. I'm watching the international. Like I'm literally like I'm like figuring out like how to do everything perfectly. And I'm like, look, I'm a pro CS player, I'm not a pro Dota player, like, and I think like that's just kind of my personality, that if I do something, I just want to be good at it. Like I can't just log on and just play for fun. Like I have a real like I could play like Donkey Kong for fun, but like I can't play like a competitive game and like not try 100%. And like bodybuilding was kind of the same thing. Like powerlifting, I had a number and I was just like, I'm not trying to deadlift 1,200 pounds to be the strongest person in the world or anything, but like for me, I always want to be stronger than last time or whatever. So it's like, it's almost like I turn it into like a little mini game that I just want to beat myself constantly. And so like my point is like, you start spending more time in the gym, you start having a girlfriend, go out on dates, and like that's just pulling time away from Counter-Strike. Like eating healthy pulls time away from Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Like you're prepping your food and eating healthier rather than before you just microwave a hot pocket, sit down and game for 10 hours, order a pizza. Like it's minimal effort, right?
Yeah.
So being healthy is definitely better for you, and you'll probably even be better at Counter-Strike. It's like there's a point of diminishing returns, right? Like you only want to be you want to be as healthy as you can be with the least amount of effort in Counter-Strike, pretty much. Like that's what I would say is like you don't want to be killing yourself, working out and eating a certain way. You just want to be like comfortable, and then I think that's probably the best state to be in. Personally.
just personal anecdote, I guess, here is just like for me, when I'm not working events, I'm still trying to watch as many games as I can. I'm trying to make content, do podcasts, whatever. But when I'm here in London, just like I get like, I think I spend roughly like 4 to 5 hours per day on like my own mental well-being, and that's what makes me feel like I'm at 100%, because I'm like cooking a couple meals a day, I'm at the gym for like an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then I'm walking a lot actually also, and I go grocery shopping very frequently, and it's like I need to block this time out. And it's like, if I didn't care about my mental health as much, which I didn't have to care about it as much when I was 18, then it's like I have so much more time in the day. But I think when you get older also, you just get kind of like fatigued faster. Maybe slightly. You just kind of realize like how much better life could be if you did take these steps to make yourself feel good. But like, when you are like sub 25 years old, I think you can get away with a lot. Like you can just eat like trash pretty much.
And you just feel fine a lot of the time too. Like I would eat, like I'll tell some stories that people might find funny. Like I was not fat on accident. Okay. Like it wasn't intentional where I was trying to get fatter. I just, for one, I didn't really understand what calories truly were. Like I like, obviously, you shouldn't eat burgers and pizza every day. Everyone knows this, but I didn't truly understand like how much I was eating. I just knew it was like, tastes good. And like, it's probably not great, but like, whatever, genetic.
Feeling full feels good.
Yeah, exactly. So I would literally go, and I would go to like Shoppers here, which is kind of like Walgreens, if you know like what that is. So it's just like a little, it's basically one of those little corner shops that doesn't sell fresh produce and meat. It has like all the boxed foods, chips and pop and stuff like that.
A lot of frozen foods.
Frozen, just like everything that's terrible for you. Basically is in this store. So I would go there with like 10 or $20, and I would just buy $10 or $20 worth of whatever was on sale. So like family sized chips, so like a big bag of Lay's. I'd have a family sized Reese's. I might have like a Delicio pizza or like a 2-liter Coke. And I would literally come home with like 2 large pizzas, a 2-liter Coke, a family sized chip bag, Reese's family size, and I would eat all of it. I'm like all of it in like 4 hours. Like I'm talking 2 large pizzas. When I would go to Wendy's, dude, I would get like 2 Baconators. I would get like 20 chicken nuggets, a Frosty, and a large Coke. And I would come home and I would just eat it all in like 15 minutes. When I worked at a grocery store nights at 8 a.m. when I got off work, I would go to Subway and I get 2 foot-long double steak and cheese subs, 4 cookies, chips, and Coke, and I would just go home and eat it and go to bed. Like I ate an absurd amount of food, like so much. It was like I should have been fatter. So like when people are like, you don't understand what it's like, I'm like, I do, motherfucker. Like you have no idea. If anyone understands, it's me. So obviously, I took that to the extreme. I think, like you said, when you get older and like you just start being like, oh, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't just eat like a complete trash. I got to start cooking my own food and eat a vegetable.
Those food groups it's so crazy actually that they teach you about the necessary food groups. Like you should have 5 fruits a day when you're a kid, because it's like when you're a kid, no one's doing that. But actually, and no one needs to honestly do it until you turn like 25, and it's like they should teach you it all then, because it's like that's when it actually matters. It doesn't like I don't think I did not eat 5 fruits until I was like in my 20s. Like
you're like an apple maybe, like, or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but what you're saying is true though, because like when I first started losing weight and I was successful, it's when I actually learned how to actually count a calorie, and I actually understood that like when you have a food scale, like this much pasta is not how much you make. You make, you know, like a little, like
Yeah.
I just didn't understand, like, okay, like this meal is 300 calories. What I was eating before was like 1200, you know, like I just didn't know, you know, like, and then once you learn, it's not as hard as you think.
Right. Okay. Okay. Last question. We're already pretty much on this topic, but I want you to just talk about what you're doing right now with your fitness goals, because I think it's always just interesting, because like you said, you have a really addictive personality, and it's like very obvious you've been on this, like you were on this like powerlifting grind, it felt like, for a while, and now you're on a bodybuilding grind. So like what does that entail? Like what's your routine like that, and what is your objective with it?
Well, I actually originally liked powerlifting more. If I'm being honest, I just kind of tweaked my lower back a few times, and it's a little bit my own fault. Like my deadlifts would never cause me issues, but sometimes low bar squatting, it was just really hard on my back. And if I kind of, I wouldn't say it was ego lift, but when I should have racked it, when it started getting hard, I would try to grind out one or two more.
Yeah. I know that.
And
Yeah, I know that.
and like it's not like I'm adding way more weight than I can handle. I can do it. It's just I probably should have stopped at rep 5, you know, or something like that. And eventually I just kind of like irritated it.
Was
And
this when you're on like a bunch of pre-workout? Because I feel like it's usually then that I'm like, I want to squeeze out one more, and it's like I probably should have stopped. Like, or like,
I had a
yeah,
yeah, I can't remember. It was a long time ago. It was like I definitely get amped up though for sure, like all the caffeine and everything, and just
okay.
wanna. You just think you're invincible until you're not, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So then like then I was like, okay, I hurt my lower back. I should diet down while I'm like recovering, because for anyone that doesn't know, just permanently bulking, whether you care about being fat or not, is counterproductive. Like at some point, everything starts teetering more towards fat gain, and your strength and everything will start slowing down. If you actually lose a little bit of weight and then go back up, you'll often find that your strength will actually improve and your body composition will look better for it. Now, so that's what my plan was. I was like, okay, I'll lose some weight. And then when I started losing weight, I started like noticing, oh, I have some shoulders, like, you know, like I started like kind of liking it a little bit more. And I didn't like, cause I was just powerlifting, I was eating. I didn't really like care if I was like a little chubby. And then I kind of liked it. And then I was also switching a little bit more to higher rep stuff because my back was hurting. Like I couldn't, you know, deadlift or squat the same way as I used to. And then I just like, I hired a bodybuilding coach, and then I had my eye thing, and I kind of just gave it a shot. You know, I spent like 6 months with a coach, kind of just doing it, and I just kind of fell in love with it. Like I'm really good at being in a routine. I'm really good at eating set meals. Like I'm a really good bodybuilder in the sense of like I can tick all the boxes meticulously day in, day out. I will eat to the gram. I will do the cardio. You can't really overwork me. It's basically impossible. I will always do it. I'm sure there's some like, yeah, if you told me to do 8 hours of cardio, I'm sure at some point I can't anymore. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, I'll do anything that is required. And yeah, so then I don't know, I just really liked being in the pattern, and having the regiment and everything. It definitely makes it harder when like I'm traveling to events and stuff. It can be very
for real.
brutal.
Yeah.
In Mexico, it got pretty tough. I didn't have a microwave. The fridges were very tiny.
Yeah.
So I was eating like, I think one time I just took boiling water in oatmeal, and I just like fucking ate it with my hand. I didn't even like have a spoon. Like it was just like,
Yeah.
I was miserable in the like in the food aspect of things there. But yeah, so then now I have a even better coach, Justin Harris, and now I'm doing a show on July 7th, and so that's what I'm dieting for now.
What's your like body comp objective by them? Is there like a weight, body fat percentage, anything like that? Like what's your body fat percent right now?
I would say I'm at like maybe I don't think my body holds fat uniformly across the whole thing, so like some places might be a little bit more or less, but I'd say probably around like, you know, 10 to 12% right now. Somewhere in that range.
I'm pretty good at guessing this stuff now after being on way too many forums, and I would have said like probably 11 to 12. like just by looking at you
Yeah.
in person? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit leaner getting home. Like when I have like my own food and stuff, I drop a lot of water. Like I hold a lot of water when I'm traveling,
Yeah.
unfortunately, especially with the heat. Like it was hot there. Like you're from Hawaii, so
Yeah.
you're used to it. But my body, like I get home and I'm just like instantly feel better. like
Right.
I'm definitely more of a cold climate guy, but yeah, there's not really like necessarily a weight goal. Although my coach said I can do classic and open if I want, so that would mean
what's
I
the
would have.
difference? Yeah, what is that?
Their classic just has a weight cap based on your height.
Uh
So if I'm a slightly under 6'1" actually, which I guess I've been saying I'm 6'1" or 6'2" all these years, so I'm a liar, I guess. I honestly just didn't measure myself, so I'm
Yeah.
very slightly under 6'1", so that puts me around the 220 weight cap. If I like hung myself upside down and kind of like extending my back, I might be able to be 230.
Yeah.
People do that, by the way. It's a new thing that like, people are like decompressing their back and then running on to get heighted.
Yeah.
And then
do they like
and then
just
they get an
hold
extra
onto
10
a
pounds.
bar for as long as they can and then to decompress their spine?
Yeah.
And hold like some
that
weight between their feet or something? Yeah.
Yeah, they'll like sleep like upside down or not sleep, but like lie upside down or hang there's a couple different ways they'll do it. But either way, I'm not really trying to hit a weight. I just want to like get lean and like my coach is really good, so he'll just go basically by pictures.
Yeah.
So right now we're still 11 weeks away, so we're not at like the crunch time yet, but he started lowered my food a lot and the cardio's higher, so
Okay.
I also hold a lot of water, so at some point I'll just drop water, and then I look like everyone in the gym will be like, "Oh, you look so much leaner." Nothing changed. My body just like decided to finally get rid of the water. Like it's from being fat. When you used to be overweight, you tend to hold water more. So any of you guys listening that you used to be overweight and you eat a cheat meal and you're like, "Oh, I gained 5 pounds, 8 pounds," it's just water. It will go away. I promise you, as long as you're staying on your diet for the rest of the time, you're fine. Like it's not, you should never be worried about like having one meal and gaining 5 pounds. That's never actual fat. Like that's like, you'd have to eat like 15,000 calories. Like, like it would just be absurd.
Right.
But yeah.
What are your, let's close it out with this. What are your like big 3 numbers right now? Like, you're doing
right now or best ever?
Okay, let's do both. What is your like program right now?
When I was powerlifting, my best numbers was 675 deadlift, 605 squat, and I failed a 365 bench, but I hit a 355 for 2 the week before. So it's got to be somewhere in the low 360s. I probably could have done. My spotter kind of jacked it too a little bit. Like he didn't let me struggle. I was a little upset about it because it was like the last week of my like eating all the food type thing. So it was like, that was what I kind of like timed it, and then I was like, whatever. So I called it after that. Now I'm doing the higher rep stuff. So like I generally work in like the 455 range on squat. I'll try to do like 5 to 10 reps in there. I've been having a lot of knee pain, so it's like all based on my knees. Like sometimes on the rep 5 it starts hurting, so I stop, and sometimes I can make it to 8. But it's getting better, so hopefully I can start like actually fucking training my legs properly, because it's been really annoying. Deadlifts, I'm probably in the 500 for like 5-ish right now. I usually do one top set and then I lower the weight. So I'll try to do like deadlift as heavy as I can for like 3 to 6 reps, and then I'll lower the weight, and then I'll do like 10 to 12 of like a lower weight, like 20-25% lower. Squat, same thing, except like squats I'll do a little bit higher reps. I'll do 5 to 10. So if I do 4 through 5 and I get 6, then next week I try to get 7, all the way till I get 10. Then once I get 10, I'll up the weight, and then I'll start over again, that type thing. It's just like linear progression, but I don't worry too much about always improving the weight. I'll do like reps as well. Something's got to go up, but when you're dieting, like you can't always.
Yeah.
And then bench, I always seem to be around like the 305, 310 mark for like 8, and then I add 5 pounds and it becomes way harder. So like I can never rep 350 in for like 8 to 10 like I want. I always get stuck at like 6. So then I like lower the weight like 5 pounds and then I get 10 and I'm like, it's barely a difference. Just give it to me.
Just give me the 3 plates. Yeah.
I just want to do the 3, but no, I'll probably have to do the next off season for that.
Okay.
To get it up, but.
Okay, well, thanks. I mean, this was cool. This was insightful. It's always a pleasure getting to hear more Semphis on podcasts. So I'm glad you were able to come on, dude. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Always nice chatting with you. And yeah, we saw each other in Monterey like 2 weeks ago, and yeah, it was pretty good.
Cool. All right, catch you around. Peace.
All right, peace, man.